Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Life Show, Week 5 Review Edition. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. It is a great night to be great. And it's a great day to break down all sorts of cool stuff that went on during an eventful Sunday. Also going to break down that Thursday night action as always. So utilization, game notes, highlights, injuries, what to do next in fantasy, all that jazz coming at you. Of course, so I cannot accomplish all this alone. And I'm joined by the one, the only, Dwain, the Rock McFarland. What's up, Mr. Dwain?
What's up, Ian? What a great day to be great. Hey, watching football, week 5, time's flying by. You got your 32 team league. You picked up Ryan Flournoy and started him. Like you're just, you're the king of kings.
That's what it all comes down to, Dwayne. My happiness day to day is just how I waiver wire on 32 team leagues. So enough of that, though, everyone. Let's just get right into it. You guys are here for a reason. We're here for a reason. Let's get after it, Dwayne. Going all the way back centuries ago to Thursday night, the 49ers took down the Rams 26-23. San Fran obviously won outright as 7.5-point dogs, ending my wiener dog Lily's perfect stretch of the season. Good thing America loves a comeback. The over did cash here of 43.5. So really, Dwayne, it was Mac Jones looking like every bit of the prodigal son that, Kyle Shanahan has kind of not specifically made him out to be, but kind of what we made him out to be in the eyes of Kyle Shanahan, man. 342 yards and 2 touchdowns on 33 of 49 passing, most of which was going through Kendrick Bourne, which was called on by the wet blanket himself, Matthew Friedman. 10 of 11 targets for 142 yards. Also, Dwayne had 11 targets going to Jake Tunges, who refuses to go away, and it does not seem like George Kittle is going to be back until at least week 7. So we'll see what happens. Extra long week with Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings. But for right now, man, it's hard to deny that Kendrick Bourne and Jake Tunges is looking pretty good as Mac Jones' top 2 targets, things that I never thought I'd be saying out loud.
Yeah, I've heard Jake Tunges pronounced as Tunges. I don't know. But I mean, he had 11 targets. He caught 7 balls, only 41 yards, but he caught the touchdown. So we'll see what happens with George Kittle. He will be eligible to come back. I haven't heard any recent updates on him. But yeah, when you look at what Tunges did in this game, he had a 23% target share, which tied with Kendrick Bourne, who also had a 23% target share, which Matthew Friedman actually gave to someone, guys, as a start-sit recommendation, went away from his rankings and just said, no, I'm going Kendrick Bourne. And he and I were like, what? Like, dude, he's like 140 in your ranks. And you know what? Friedman was right. So hopefully, whoever you were that asked that question, I hope that you started Kendrick Bourne because he scored 24.2 fantasy points. I think the big takeaway for me here, Ian, like this is like business as usual for the 49ers. But hey, with Mac Jones playing the way that he is and knowing that Brock Purdy's banged up, like you have an insurance policy, right? And we should be getting Kittle back. We're talking about, I don't know for sure, another 2 to 4 weeks. We really don't have a clue. Like we just know it's going to be longer than what they thought. But it's a team that should be getting healthier. Hopefully we'll have Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings back the week after next. But man, Kyle Shanahan, major hat tip, especially in these island games, Ian, and what he does with these Richie James. Remember the Richie James game a few years ago on a Thursday night? And then there was another one last year. And I think it was a Juwan Jennings game because Juwan hadn't really broken out yet. So, yeah, continues to somehow scheme up these things for these players. Pretty amazing.
And Mac Jones, obviously a really good fit in that offense. He was taking what the defense was giving him, which is honestly, I think, all Kyle Shanahan has ever asked from his quarterback. So again, I think that's why Brock Purdy could be the best addition of a Shanahan quarterback because he's capable of doing that, but also the off-script goodness he brings to the table is just unlike anything guys like Mac Jones, Nick Mullins, Jimmy Garoppolo really are capable of doing out there. So don't want to take anything away from Mac Jones, but Dwayne, I know some people are trying to say like, oh, do we have a quarterback competition heating up in San Francisco now? I think there are hundreds of millions of reasons why that will not be the case. But again, great job by Mac Jones. I love the, two-face suit he was rocking in, certainly making himself a lot of money on a future backup or even bridge starter contract at this point. So additional shout out, of course, to Christian McCaffrey, caught 8 passes, 82 yards and a touchdown, chipped in 57 rushing yards. Dwayne, it is almost hilarious how little he's doing on the ground, just racking up all of his production through the air. We'll take the fantasy points however they come. Number 1 on the season in PPR fantasy points per game, on pace for 442 touches. Never thought I'd say this, but chill out. Okay. I'll take 390, Dwayne. We don't need to be breezing past 440.
I think the other takeaway here is Brian Robinson Jr. is a must roster RB2. Like, cause I've seen him floating around like on a few waiver wires. None of the skank league stuff. We know he's rostered there, but this is a guy that has been cut in some leagues. So, I mean, I think he's a guy that we want to be carrying. I think the other one big takeaway here from the 49ers is just how pass heavy they've been this year. I mean, normally this is a very run balanced kind of team. They're really, I don't want to say they're pass heavy, but they're more pass balanced to a little bit past that this year. This is another game, man, where when you look at the passing attempts, 49 for Mac Jones, and then you look at the rushing attempts for the team far under that. We've pretty much seen that every game, and they just haven't been very efficient on the ground. Like Christian McCaffrey averaged 2.6 yards per carry, and this one it doesn't matter though. Whenever you catch the 8 balls for 82 yards and a touchdown.
On the other sideline, Matthew Stafford, 389 yards through the air, not one, not two, but 3 touchdowns. His back continues to look awfully healthy, Dwayne. I think if we knew how healthy it was, we wouldn't have let Puka Nacua slide into the end of round 1 as a fantasy community. All he's done this year is basically work as, if you want to call him the 101 or the 102 next to CMC, be my guest. Either way, man, this dude's just going out there and absolutely racking up the fantasy points. 10 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown through the air, which is a little bit hard to come by for him last Thursday night. So again, spectacular game from Puka. Devontae Adams also did his thing, caught 5 of 11 targets for 88 yards, 101 unrealized air yards on the evening, guys. Those was the second most, I should say, on the week. So bigger days likely ahead for Devontae Adams. I would say, Dwayne, the real storyline came down in this backfield because both running backs happened to put the football on the ground, but it only seemed like one of them actually got punished for it.
Yeah, Kyron Williams fumbled, but it didn't matter. And he had a massive spike game in the receiving department, which we haven't really seen from Kyron Williams since his rookie year. We would get these occasionally, but he had 10 targets, 8 receptions, 66 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. So you guys were loving some Kyron Williams. But to your point, Blake Corum fumbled and he got buried. He only played 9% of the snaps. So we'll see what happens. Like if they activate Jarquez Hunter next week, like that would be another data point we wouldn't really like. For now, though, I probably say just chill out. I think we still look at Blake Corum as the running back 2 you want to roster here. I did want to ask you real quick, Ian, on Stafford. When we look at him, when we look at the game logs over the last couple of games with Stafford, well, number one, he's thrown multiple touchdowns every game except week 1 when he threw 1. He's thrown 2, 2, 3, and 3 over the last 4 games. And now over the last 3 games, he's hit 298 yards. He had one in week 3 against the Eagles, a tough matchup, threw for 196, but comes back with 375 versus Indy and then 389 versus the 49ers. Are you upgrading Matthew Stafford? I kind of feel like we have to. I mean, with Devontae Adams, how much they're throwing the ball once they get down inside the 20, inside the 10-yard line, Stafford's looking pretty good, man.
I mean, what's really the difference between Stafford and Dak or Goff at this point? I know Dak can move a little bit better, but he doesn't that much. I mean, Dak's got 22.
Yeah, a little more the last couple of games.
He got today. You know, just generally. So again, yeah, I'll rank Dak ahead of Stafford and everything. But no, if we have Dak and we have Jared Goff along that QB1 borderline, if not inside the top 10, tier, Stafford should at least be in that same tier. So no, that's a good call out. And man, like you go back to that 2021 season, which was the 41 touchdowns from Stafford. Last time we saw him work as a QB1. That, of course, was the Cooper Kupp Triple Crown season. They actually got OBJ during the second half. He was doing really good things before, again, unfortunately, tearing his knee up in the Super Bowl. So when we've seen Sean McVay, Dwayne, I think have 2 healthy, really good go-to options. Yeah. He's been willing to throw the football around the yard. Certainly has someone very qualified to do so.
Yeah, 6% touchdowns per attempt, so more in line with the Super Bowl year. We've been down around 4.2% the last 2 years. Now Stafford back up, and Devontae Adams has a lot to do with that.
So we'll see what happens with the running back room. Again, it was a dominant 91% snap share for Kyron Williams, as Dwayne mentioned. Blake Corum didn't get immediately doghoused after the fumble. They brought him back out there for at least one series. It did seem like he was no longer playing, though, after he ended up dropping an easy pass in the flats. So we'll see what happens. Again, Kyron Williams has 7 fumbles over the last 2 seasons. Only Ramondre Stevenson has more. So I would like to think that McVay is not going to completely hold this against Blake Corum, but maybe it is just a Kyron, exception to the rule sort of thing. So, yeah. Overall, good stuff for the Rams on the season. I know this wasn't the prettiest one, but still 3-2 and still looking very much like a playoff contender. Next week, we're going to have the Rams in Baltimore, probably against Cooper Rush from what we've been hearing. That's looking pretty good for them. 49ers will be in Tampa Bay to take on the Fighting Baker Mayfields. Dwayne, last question. There was no Tyler Higbee. Did we get any sort of a featured role for Davis Allen or Terrence Ferguson?
Nope. It was just a rotation. So not much we can do here.
And with that, we can move on to the London game. The Vikings took down the Cleveland Browns 21-17. Minnesota covered as 3.5-point faves. The overcash here at 35.5, ever so slightly after Carson Wentz hit Jordan Addison for a game-winning touchdown. So Wentz 236 and a touchdown through the air, which honestly against this Browns defense, man, I would go ahead and put that in the category of pretty darn impressive, particularly considering Dwain, he didn't have his number 2 wide receiver for the first quarter, apparently due to a coach's decision. Was it just because he got hawked by a linebacker last week? Have you heard what exactly was the reason for Jordan Addison, Dwain? Because he looked good in the second half in the fourth quarter, particularly after you decided to tweet about him doing nothing. So I think Jordan Addison fantasy managers can thank you for that. But just a weird situation for someone who, again, literally was just suspended for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Addison in the first half only had a 33% route participation. So my guess is some sort of team discipline. Who knows? Late to a meeting, fell asleep in a meeting. I don't want to speculate. Something happened, though. Obviously, came out there, played the second half, though, ended up with a 76% route participation on the day, 19% targets per route run, 18% target share. But like you mentioned, did have the touchdown catch. So came through with 15.1 PPR points today for fantasy managers. And then TJ Hawkinson was the third guy behind him in target share with, well, he actually tied Jordan Addison with an 18%. But man, Hawk just really not doing much all season so far, Ian. 9.8 fantasy points a day. Not really what fantasy managers signed up for if you took him, in that 6th, 7th round of your draft, hoping you were getting a top 6 guy. He's just really the player that gets squeezed here. And Josh Oliver caught the touchdown today. So sorry, Hawkinson managers. I know it's been rough. He just really feels like the odd man out at this point. More of a borderline tight end one, if anything, Ian.
Obviously, Justin Jefferson, the star of the passing game, 123 yards, caught 7 of 11 targets, continuing to really make do very nicely without, what most people will call, I should say, high-end quarterback play. In the backfield, Dwain, Jordan Mason, 13 carries, 52 yards, and a touchdown, 3 catches for 4 scoreless yards. Honestly, better than I was expecting. It was nice to see him get that goal line touchdown. This is the toughest on-paper matchup for opposing running backs, basically, in the NFL. So he did lose a fumble. It seemed like he started to maybe lose a few snaps to Xavier Scott, but then Xavier Scott lost a fumble, Dwain. So now I guess we're back on an even playing field. But usual kind of Jordan Mason bell cow usage here.
71% of the snaps, 68% of the rushing attempts. You had 56% of the dropbacks today. Xavier Scott did not play as much in a leading game script. Last week we had that trailing game script, which I think really inflated what we got from Scott. You did mention his fumble, man. He got sandwiched on that play. 2 dudes just like rocking his world at the same time. It's just the ball just split out. So tough hit to take. But yeah, man, whenever you're an undrafted free agent who's been in the league for like 3 years, you can't be putting the ball on the ground. You're probably not going to get the same leeway as the dude they just paid or they traded for in the offseason, which is Jordan Mason.
We will see when Aaron Jones is back. I believe the earliest he could return per ESPN is October 23rd, which would put him on pace to be back for week 8. The Vikings do have a week 6 bye before they take on the Eagles in week 7. I would think JJ McCarthy will be back for that Eagles game. He was, I believe, supposed to practice in a limited fashion, start moving around a little bit more this week. Never thought it was realistic that he was going to return while they were still overseas. We will see what happens there. I'm sure we'll get all the updates in the world, Dwain, as we see the Vikings get through this bye. But good win for them. Again, now sitting at 3-2 despite really not playing anyone's idea of great football for extended stretches. Over with the Cleveland Browns, we saw Dylan Gabriel's first start, and no, wasn't overly impressive. I think I saw a stat at the end before like the last drive where he was 1 for 10 on passes thrown, at least 10 yards downfield. That said, Dwain, Vikings, Brian Flores, we knew this was going to be one of the tougher tests that a starting rookie quarterback could have. And just again, the fact he did go 190 and 2 touchdowns, one Issa David Njoku and Harold Fannin, it was fine. He looked like a point guard who can operate an offense that has a lot of good places to go with the football. And no, I'm not confusing with the Browns for the 9-9 loss. I guess it'd be St. Louis Rams back then, Dwain. But hey, we got 2 good tight ends, and we got a running back that is looking like the next big thing in the position right now.
Yeah, man. Quinshon Judkins, 23 rushing attempts today. Gave you 13.8 fantasy points. Wasn't like the greatest outing from a box score standpoint, but he had a very long touchdown run called back on what it was on a holding call that did help him get the edge. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and argue about it, but it was great to see him get to the second level, past the third level defenders, and show that he had the gas to get all the way there. So really a player, man, that's just playing well at all 3 levels. At the line of scrimmage, he's making the right decisions. He's taking the yards that are there when he needs to, but whenever he has an opportunity, he'll see something backside. He's not afraid of Ian. He'll immediately attack it. 4.8 rushing yards per attempt again today. This guy's in the top 15 now, including week 1. in fantasy points, for running backs. So, I mean, including week 2 when he only had half the work because he basically had just stepped off the plane. So yeah, man, Judkins, looking at him right now. I know we talked about it whenever he first came back. We're like, man, great, low end running back 2, but can we ever really get him past like mid range running back 2? Well, like he's knocking on the door now. Like he's a borderline running back 1 with the way he's playing. He just looks absolutely fantastic. He's still not getting the pass down work that is going to Mr. Jerome Ford. I will say this though, there's 3 plays where we've seen Quinshon Judkins on the move. Watched all of his film. Reviewed some of it with Mr. Thor Nystrom, guys, last week on Talk Data to Me. If you didn't get to check that episode out, you should hear what Thor has to say about Quinshon Judkins. But a lot of what I was noticing was a lot of the targets like this season have been like a play action to him, and how they'd like run through the line of scrimmage and just turn around, that little like hook pattern right there underneath the linebacker. Guys, it's really hard to gain any yards on that. You catch it, the linebacker's already coming downhill. You got an Ian Hartitz coming after you trying to take your head off. You can't really get turned around. But man, when they get him moving, and like I said, this is the 3rd play where we've seen this, and he's moving laterally, and they get the ball to him. He's basically already a runner, and they're doing this on 1st and 2nd down. He looks pretty good as a receiver. I'm not saying he's going to turn this guy is going to be this down the field threat, but he's not a zero in the passing game. So just a big play waiting to happen, whatever way they can get him the ball. So yeah, Quinshon Judkins definitely an upgrade.
Extensions of the run game. And I mean, the Browns offensive line, I wouldn't say they're terrible, but they have been banged up. So the more you can just get the ball to your playmakers in space, man, sign me up for that. He does have multiple targets in every single game this season. These last 3 weeks where he has been the running back, y'all, 20, 25, and 25 combined carries and targets. So that's higher to me, Dwain. Maybe that's a 3-week kind of blip and it's going to settle in closer to 17 or 18. But man, he had 20 plus carries and targets. Why can't the dude be in the top 12, especially again with bye weeks coming along? So I do think, full slate. The only issue here is literally just the Browns offense sucks. And I don't think anyone will disagree with that. If we had a situation where Judkins was looking at multiple trips, inside the 10-yard line per game, rank him however high you want. Again, that really is the only problem here. But dude,
17.3 points per game in his 3 games where he's essentially been the starter. So those last 3 weeks you just talked about, that's pretty good stuff.
Pretty freaking good, man. So Jerome Ford stealing a little bit here and there. Dylan Sampson, certainly someone who can be cut away with in redraft land. Again, mentioned David Njoku, team high 9 targets, caught 6 of them for 67 yards and a touchdown. We'll see, Dwain. I'm not willing to go ahead and say that he is now the clear-cut lead tight end. I think we saw similar usage there. It was good to see, again, just signs that, hey, Njoku, like Ian wasn't a complete idiot for drafting him so much in best ball throughout this whole summer. But again, Fannon's still very good in his own right. What did we see from the wide receiver room, though, Dwain? Because that is the bigger question mark without Cedric Tillman now missing the next 4 games, at least with that hamstring injury.
Well, we did have Jerry Jeudy out there the whole time, but only 3.5 fantasy points, which has kind of been like status quo for the year. It hasn't mattered if it's Flacco or whether it's Dylan Gabriel. But we did have Isaiah Bond getting an 89% route participation. Only gave you 4.9 fantasy points today, but he had a 22% target share. That was second on the team behind David Njoku. And Isaiah Bond is a guy that they're moving around, Ian. He did lead the team in air yards today with 94. He accounted for 45% of it. Operated from the slot 53% of the time. So they're trying to get some things going, man. They have too many mouths still. Like Malachi Corley I didn't even know he was on this team. I guess I'm going to start projecting Malachi Corley now. He had route participation as well. Jamari Thrash out there, but it does look like Bond right now is the wide receiver 2 until we get Cedric Tillman back. Real quick on David Njoku. Number 1, looks like a gladiator out there. He was a gladiator in a previous life. I swear, guys. He fought a rhinoceros, an alligator, and a human at the same time, and the dude won. He slayed all 3. He was loved in Rome. There's no doubt about it. But it was a season high for him, 91% route participation. And the one thing, I'm with you. I'm not ready to say, okay, David Njoku is all the way, he's back in our good graces, 18.7 fantasy points today. But Dylan Gabriel, man, a lot more design stuff for Njoku today. And Dylan Gabriel just has a lot more mobility than Joe Flacco. And we saw them getting him on the move, waggles, boots, different things like that, operating under center from the shotgun. So there could be some interesting wrinkles. We'll have to keep an eye on it. But to your point, it was nice to see Njoku get the full-time role and score some fantasy points. Probably on your bench.
Exactly. Browns going to be traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the rested Steelers after this one. A little bit wonky for them not to have a bye coming back from overseas, but I digress. I believe the Steelers will be without Jalen Ramsey at least for another week or two. So again, it's been a defense that finally was starting to play just a little bit better before their bye, but really was on the struggle bus before. Could be a low-key situation for Judkins and company to again flirt with a good performance. Moving right along, Dwayne, we had the Dallas Cowboys, America's team. I don't think people believe that anymore. But once upon a time they did. The Cowboys took down the Jets 37-22. Cowboys are 1.5-point dogs by the time everything closed. Again, just not even team, had a bunch of offensive linemen out as well. Either way, as always with the Cowboys, the over cashed with relative ease at 48 points. So this really was a blowout, Dwain. It was 30-3 Cowboys with 4 minutes left in the third. That's usually about the point in games when Garrett Wilson and Justin Fields say, all right, it's time to start putting up some numbers here, baby. And they did. So more on them in a few minutes. But first things first, man, just shout out to Dak Prescott, who I'm not sure if the Cowboys are going to be successful enough from a team standpoint for him to be, a legit MVP front runner like he was back in 2023. Obviously didn't win it. Not saying he should have won it, but he was, on that. I think he was runner up. All right. So we'll see what happens. But Dwain, he is certainly playing like he was back in 2023, which was the best football of his career.
He's playing fantastic. Over the last 2 games, 30.9 and 28.3 fantasy points in 2 games without CeeDee Lamb, 7 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Last week, he ran for a rushing touchdown. This week, he had 7 attempts for 28 yards. So it was something we heard in the media, Dak talking about he needed to run the ball more. We have seen it for 2 games. Don't know that it will stick, but man, anything it can give you there, that's an added bonus. I mean, today threw 4 touchdowns, 237 yards, 8.2 yards per attempt. So yeah, Dak gets an upgrade here. Like you mentioned earlier, we kind of got a tier of guys going there. But I mean, like it's kind of getting crowded at that QB1 borderline, Ian, and it could kind of start to create some headaches for us in the ranks as far as figuring out who to put where.
Again, 8 touchdowns over the past 2 weeks, I believe, for Dak. Only Goff and Stafford have more than Dak on this season. He is resting there at 10. So shout out to that banged up Cowboys offensive line. Maybe it's more of a, FU to the Jets, but Dak was only pressured on 21% of his dropbacks. That was the second lowest mark on the week. So we'll see if they can get healthy. But yeah, 0-5 New York Jets, Dwain, the only team in the NFL that still has not recorded a single takeaway on defense. Yikes. Otherwise, on the Cowboys, Javonte Williams just continuing to look like one of the absolute gems of the 2025 fantasy season. $135 on the ground and a touchdown. Also caught a short receiving touchdown. Could have had another touchdown right before half. He went 66 yards on basically a draw play where they were just very content to go into halftime. Javonte said, not so fast, my friend. Broke a couple tackles and again went all the way down to 1, at which point Dak found Jake Ferguson just before halftime. So Javonte Williams, man, 5.7 yards per carry. If you drafted him, you are a very, very happy man. This was in the game, Dwain, where we did see the debut of Jaden Blue. Didn't look like he was doing too much out there in the way of stealing snaps from Javonte.
No, 19% of the snaps for Blue, 17% of the rushing attempts, only a 9% route participation. Like the story here is Javonte on the season, Ian, 20.7 fantasy points per game. He is the running back 4 behind Bijan Robinson. Like he's a top 12 running back. Like he plays on one of the best offenses in the league. They have to keep the pedal to the metal. They're willing to run the ball when they get down inside the 5-yard line. Javonte is here to stay.
5.7 yards per carry. That's tied for the third best mark among all RBs.
66-yarder.
And it's not like he's doing it on these 22 or 23 rush attempts. He's been out here every single week, racking up the load. Kudos to, again, Javonte Williams really reinventing himself in Dallas. He already has 6 touchdowns this year. He only had 5 last year in Denver, 4 the year before. Really has been a great comeback story. Otherwise, wide receivers, George Pickens caught 2 of 4 targets, but one of them was a 43-yard touchdown on top of Sauce Gardner. So it was fun seeing both those guys battle out. Pickens at least won that rep. And, didn't supply his fantasy managers with a total dud in what was still a very tough matchup. But otherwise, Dwain, you said it, a little bit earlier in the intro. Ryan Flournoy really was the star of the show. No Kevontae Turpin. And, it's not like we've seen a ton of Flournoy over the years, but I will say, Dwain, even just the minimal instances we saw, I felt that Dak already had a better chemistry with him than Jalen Tolbert. And man, just judging by Tolbert, only getting 1 target out there and goose egging with it, sure seemed like that came to fruition.
Yeah, Tolbert still had the lead in routes, 91%, but Flournoy, it'll be interesting to see what the Cowboys do even when they get Kevontae Turpin back. He only had a 64% route participation, but he had a 32% target share. He led the team, and he was working downfield, intermediate. He had a 9.6 average depth of target. He led the team in air yards today, so 18.4 fantasy points. So if you are in a deeper league, I can't guarantee you, right, that once we get Turpin back that this role is going to continue. But when we see a player flash like this on an offense like the Cowboys, if you guys are playing in deeper leagues, I definitely think Flournoy is worth a stash. Don't go spend all your fab on him, but he is a guy that we want to definitely keep an eye on. The big story here for me, outside of Flournoy, Ian, is Jake Ferguson, 23.9 fantasy points today. He had a 32% target share, so he tied for the lead with Flournoy. He is now averaging 17.2 fantasy points per game with a 25% target share, 1.75 yards per route run on the season. We'll see what happens when CeeDee Lamb returns. Obviously, this pie gets split up, but we are throwing the ball so much in Dallas, and we're getting so much offense. Like it's going to be hard, honestly. I think even when CD's back, for Ferguson to not be like top 6, 7 tight ends. And who knows? He could just keep it rolling, man. Right now, he is the number 2 target on the team over Pickens. So it'll look, we like all these guys. It'll be interesting to see where Ferguson falls in line. But as long as CD's out, man, like he's in the top tier, right? The top tier of tight ends that we talk about every week with Trey McBride, Tyler Warren. Ferguson's right there with them. And once we get Lamb back, we'll see what happens. We'll reassess.
I think he's easy tight end 3. And if someone was like, screw that, I trust Dak more than I do Kyler Murray or Daniel Jones, I'm making my tight end 1. That's what he's been this year, Dwayne, by almost 20 freaking points. Jake Ferguson, fantasy's tight end 1. He's got the touchdown monkey off his back now. He's finding the end zone again. Life is good for Jake Ferguson. Again, got that contract in the offseason. I think the guy got engaged. Jake Ferguson playing the best football of his career. Love to see that. Cowboys traveling to Carolina to take on Bryce Young and company next week. It's a secondary that's actually been pretty good in terms of limiting wide receivers, so it could be another very big game for Mr. Ferguson. He'll continue to be in fantasy lineups of all shapes and sizes. He did get banged up at one point out there, so maybe keep an eye on the practice and injury reports, but I do believe he returned after that. On to the Jets. Justin Fields, Dwayne, 283 yards, 2 touchdowns, 32 of 46. Just a pure passing display. Never had any moments throughout the game where it was hard to watch or anything like that. Is there another player in the league where you just cannot watch play? Look at your fantasy points roll in, maybe check a couple of highlights and shut the computer. Like that's what Justin Fields is.
Yeah, it is. But I tell you what, it's a fun ride for fantasy. He's averaging 27.5 fantasy points per game in his 3 full games, Ian. Like, I mean, the dude is just, I mean, he gave you 25.9 today. To your point, a lot of it did come in garbage time. But the Jets are so bad, man. They're 0-5. Like, I really feel like the only path to Fields failing is if for some reason they were to bench him. And I did hear Aaron Glenn say, we're not committed to our starter. But man, come on. It's not like Tyrod Taylor is going to fix this team. We love Ty God, but he's not fixing this team. So, 283 yards passing. The big thing I'll say here as well with him is averaging 242 passing yards per game up to coming into this season. And you guys heard me say this multiple times, averaging 180. And the Jets, they want to run the ball, man, but they get so far behind the defense. It's just like, honestly, man, that's the big thing. If the Jets want to look at something and be like, why is our season going so terrible? It's the defense is playing awful, right? I mean, they can't stop anyone. So that's a big issue for the Jets because we thought, hey, maybe it's a rebound year. We get that kind of defense we saw from them a couple of years ago. That just hasn't been the case. And man, that's good for Fields.
And guys, 1 for 1, like who do I think is the better real life passer? I think it's Tyrod Taylor. I don't think it's by a huge amount though. What happened in the one game we got to see Tyrod in? He had 80 passing yards, Dwayne, on 27 dropbacks in the first 45 minutes of that game. And then when Tampa Bay got up a lot, he started putting up numbers. Does that remind you of anyone? Like that's, again, Tyrod's fine, but I just don't think the Jets have any reason in the long term or even that much in the short term to go ahead and trust Tyrod over Fields. Tyrod isn't going to give you a 55-yard rushing touchdown that's just out of nowhere like Fields still very much can, but I digress. I just wish both these quarterbacks or whoever's going to be playing quarterback for the Jets next year or the year after actually could have a number 2 wide receiver who is not Josh Reynolds. But in the meantime, Dwayne, it's going to be Garrett Wilson getting all the targets he can handle. He caught 6 of 10 today for 71 yards and a touchdown. Wide receiver 6 on the season. He, Emeka Ibuka, and Jackson Smith and the Jigba all sitting up there. Go Buckeyes. Otherwise, though, we already knew Garrett Wilson and Justin Fields were going to do their thing in Fantasyland. The real surprise, Dwayne, was yet another sicko start extraordinaire. Talk about Mason Taylor and this newfound target share he's been seeing.
Yeah, this is your number 2 passing game option in the Jets. And as much as they trail and they get in these blowout scripts, Mason Taylor is going to have value the rest of the way. He scored 17.7 fantasy points today. He has a season high, or he tied his season high from week one with a route participation of 85%. He had a 27% target share, actually outdid Garrett Wilson today. All stuff underneath, guys. More of like the Evan Ingram, look, that's most tight ends. That's what Jake Ferguson is doing as well. So I will hear people sometimes be like, oh, well, he just doesn't get the. No, this is mostly where tight ends operate in the league. There are a few guys that are stretching the field, doing things that are uncommon, but Taylor fits into this mold of these guys that are just sitting underneath the coverage. Defenses are dropping back, trying to take away Garrett Wilson and do these other things. And there he is, just sitting wide open. Here are his target shares from the beginning of the season until this game: 5%. 9%, 18%, 26%, and 27%. He's going to be at 80% before long, Ian. So yeah, upgrade. I have him as a borderline tight end 1 the rest of the way. I mean, this is a young player. He's a second round draft pick. You're going to have some bumps along the way, guys. It's the Jets offense. I get it. You don't want to trust. Honestly, the Jets offense is probably going to be worse for us when they get in games that are close. But as long as they're in these sort of situations, like, man, it's really good for Mason Taylor. So I think he's right there on that borderline tight end 1 status. You want to call him a low end tight end 1, because we have some guys down there we don't really care that much about. I'd rather take the young guy, man.
When we talked about this in the offseason, I don't want to be the guy who's like, if you go back to July 3rd at the 1 hour and 46 minute point,
Ian said take him. No.
We recognize Mason Taylor's existence, guys. We were on it first, okay? Not to do that, but again, and most people were like, okay, Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson, like we remember DJ Moore. Cole Kmet was a top 10 tight end year. Like that was the thought. And then you look at this again, despicable wide receiver who might bring up every week. It made sense that if Mason Taylor could get a full-time role, that he could do this. He had the training camp injury going on a little bit, kind of took us off the set as we got closer to the year. Fully back now, Mason Taylor. I'm with you, Dwain. Definitely in the top 15. Another week like this, man, he might go ahead and just break through that tight end 1 door. Last point, though, Breece Hall, someone who continues to really make the most of his opportunities. Unfortunately, lost a fumble out there today. Also got tackled at the 1 yard line. Did not score a touchdown on the same drive. Justin Fields threw a touchdown to fullback Andrew Beck, who I can confidently tell you guys is still a free agent in my 32 team league. Maybe I need to get on that, but he is playing really good football. Dwayne Breece Hall this year, 5.3 yards per rush. That's the 6th highest mark among 46 qualified running backs. He's also one of 6 running backs with at least 150 receiving yards already. So again, we're seeing the issues with the dual threat quarterback. Justin Fields was scrambling instead of checking down as much as he could. Also certainly factor into the rushing equation when they get down inside the 5. But Breece Hall, Dwayne, certainly seems like he is projecting now for around 20 combined carries and targets whenever, for however long I should say, Braylon Allen's going to be out. That said, still maybe a little bit more Isaiah Davis than we would prefer today.
Yeah, a little bit more, but still, I mean, Hall, 17.5 fantasy points today in a PPR league, and it was a season high 78% of the rushing attempts. It was the passing downs where he did give up some of the work to Isaiah Davis. So Breece Hall's hit 16 or more fantasy points in a PPR league 3 out of 5 games now. So I think look, you're feeling good about Breece Hall if you had him. And guys, like, he's going to have bigger days than this. Like today could have been an even bigger day. So when you look at Isaiah Davis, 6.3 PPR points today, he took 44% of the snaps, 45% of the routes. The big thing, the 100% of the 2-minute offense, but there were only 3 snaps where they were in the 2-minute offense, but those did go to Davis instead of Breece Hall. So yeah, I think when you look at Breece Hall, sitting right there at that borderline running back 1 status, because he can really do it all. And as long as we have, God, why is my mind going blank? Braylon Allen. As long as we don't have Braylon Allen, like, I think he probably gets the majority of the rushing attempts, and maybe we're around that 70% mark, which will certainly take it.
Certainly was a nice matchup for the Jets to take advantage of here, and their main parties really did as much as we could have hoped for. Not going to be as easy next Sunday, Dwayne. We have freaking 4 more weeks of these 9:30 a.m. kickoffs. The Jets are going to be taking on the Broncos and Tottenham Hotspur Stadium there in England. So shout out to the Toddies. Saints took down the Giants 26-14. Unfortunately, the Giants could not keep their win streak going. The Saints in the Spencer Rattler era finally did get their first win accordingly. So Saints were down 14-3 early. I mean, the Giants really went up and down the field on the first 2 drives. I thought it was going to get ugly. Rattler and company kept them in it. So it really was a pretty clean performance from Rattler, 225 yards and a touchdown. Had to deal with 3 drops, but didn't turn the ball over and didn't even take a single sack, Dwayne. So look, there have been some lows, but man, other than that game against the Seahawks, they got absolutely boat raced off the field. I want to say now it's been, even going back to week 18 of last year, like, this obviously was a comfortable win, but even when they were losing, man, Rattler has managed to keep multiple guys fantasy relevant, and honestly even keep the Saints in the game. I, for one, probably underestimated what he could do this year. Good for Spencer Rattler, man.
Yeah, man. And shout out Dave in the chat says the Fighting Cooter Doodles got the win. You are correct. The Fighting Cooter Doodles did take down the Giants. And to your point with Rattler, really today was his best day as far as yards per attempt. That's kind of been the problem. It's been like down in the mid fives to low five, 7.5 today. He had the big play to Rashid Shaheed. So that was big. Obviously, another shout out to Cooter Doodle. Who knows? She might have to buy another Rashid Shaheed jersey after that. Also, had Taysom Hill dropping back and throwing one pass, Ian, for 19 yards to his tight end counterpart, Juwan Johnson, for the touchdown. So, yeah, you like to see that. On the receivers, just real quick, Juwan still had an 81% route participation today, only a 13% target share. He was coming into this game banged up. Actually, was the touchdown to Juwan? Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. It's not counting it for some reason right now in True Media. I guess they don't want to count it because it's from Taysom Hill. It'll probably update in the morning. But when you look at Juwan, like I do get a little bit worried as Taysom Hill gets healthier. Taysom Hill only had a 3% route participation today. More involved on the ground. He had 21% of the design rushing attempts, but Juwan has been trending down for a couple of weeks now. So we'll see what happens with him. I still think he's in the top 12 tight ends, Ian, but it's getting a little bit more crowded now.
To be clear, Dwayne, that was not a touchdown from Taysom to Juwan.
Oh, was it not? Oh, my bad.
You're good. But
Who was it?
Hey, no, I mean, I think they just had the one touchdown, Spencer Rattler.
Okay, my bad. I thought, did it get, I guess it got, okay, sorry, my bad. I thought there was a Taysom touchdown pass. My bad.
You're good. 4 field goals from Blake Groupie if you guys are into that kind of thing. So, yeah, Taysom Hill, it's good to see him complete the pass. Do we need to be giving 35-year-old Taysom Hill coming off a devastating multi-ligament knee surgery all of the important short yardage carries, Dwayne? I'm just not so sure it's in the best interest of this team anymore, right? Sean Payton's in Denver. Like, who had to twist Kellen Moore's arm to be like, hey, man, I know this is your team. I know this is your offense, but hey, 3rd and 1, 4th one, we still got to give the ball to Taysom Hill. 6 carries, -1 yards. I know the 2 meaningful short yardage opportunities. He got one and he missed one. So I don't know. I'd just rather see the ball go to Alvin Kamara. Or honestly, at this point, Kendre Miller, man, if you guys want to look at running backs, and I know Kendre doesn't have the largest sample, but the 2 things I like to try to look at for just individual running back performance, missed tackles forced per carry and yards after contact per carry. Dwayne, he's literally up there with Bijan Robinson as the 2 most efficient running backs in the league. And I am not saying Kendre is Bijan. Do not quote me that Kendre is Bijan. But my God, he leads the NFL in missed tackles forced after contact. Again, he's right up there in rushing yards after contact as well. Again, he was our just, other than Woody Marks, like must pick up player from last week. And I don't think anything about today, Dwayne, suggests that we should be changing that stance.
Yeah, sorry. I was trying to look at the Taysom thing because I was trying to figure it out. I thought maybe it was a 2-point conversion. I swear I thought I saw it was a touchdown. Maybe something got called back. Don't know. But sorry, what were you asking about? Running
Kendre Miller. Balling.
Yeah, Kendre Miller, yes. Continues to trend up, man. So here are his snaps from week 1 through this week: 13%, 16%, 27%, 32%, 42%. Unfortunately, on the flip side of that, man, Alvin Kamara gets, so it's an upgrade for Kendre Miller. You guys need to make sure he's grabbed off the waiver wire. It's a downgrade for Alvin Kamara. His snap shares have gone from 81 all the way down to 53% in this game. PPR points, 13.7, 16 down to 6.6, 11.2, and 9.5 today for Kamara. His targets are up over the last 2 games, 20% and 19%. So maybe that'll be enough to like salvage something out of Kamara. He did move into, I believe, 5th all time for running back. I think it was receptions or receiving yards, one of the 2 today. So look, Kamara out there doing his thing, getting some more targets. But yeah, we don't like to see in an offense that we don't love, even though Spencer Rattler did play pretty decent today, but an offense that we don't love, seeing this happen. And the other factor here is, again, Taysom Hill. 21% of the design rushing attempts today. So now you've got 3 potential mouths that you're trying to feed, and we know how Taysom likes to steal those carries down inside the 5-yard line. Ian, my gut says we'll see some more of that when they get those opportunities.
You mentioned the Shaheed 87-yard touchdown catch. He did clear the 100-yard mark on the day. Great to see. Hit the 5th fastest speed by a ball carrier on the season. Also, shout out Chris Olave. Yeah, the stat line wasn't massive. Caught 7 of 11 targets for 59 yards. It's basically like, Dwayne, if you need 12.8 PPR points, Olave will get you 12.8. If you need 14.5, he'll get you 12.8. So, certainly does have that 2024 Wandale vibe. In his defense today, though, guys, he drew 25, 19, and 16-yard defensive pass interference penalty. So I know that's not helping your fantasy leagues. Maybe it should help our fantasy leagues one of these days. But again, just he was going out there doing his thing. And as long as Spencer Rattler and this offense continue to be good enough or just below average, not freaking a dumpster fire, I do think Olave can continue to be, a pretty solid wide receiver 3 and far more fantasy lineups than not. Over for the New York Football Giants, Jackson Dart, 202 yards, 2 touchdowns, 26 of 40 passing, also chipped in 55 rushing yards. Dwain, he already has 109 rushing yards this year. That is 1 less than Caleb Williams and actually 9 more than Bo Nix. So lost a fumble that he pretty much just dropped, and he also underthrew Darius Slayton on what probably should have been a 50-plus yard touchdown off a flea flicker. But I've liked what I've seen, man, particularly in the beginning of the games. The offensive line, other than Andrew Thomas, also not doing him a lot. So I just want to ask you this, though, Dwain, because I feel like I like what I see from Jackson Dart, and I've been very, just intrigued by the flashes going on here. And then I look at it, and I say, okay, yards per attempt and EPA per dropback. He's 36 and 33rd among 37 qualified quarterbacks. So am I looking at this through 2 rosy-colored lenses, Dwain, or is it just a situation, too, where like, well, why should we be expecting great numbers? This is Giants offense that no longer even has Malik Neighbors.
Well, I mean, it's just because he's running the ball, though. So, I mean, when you have 7 attempts for 55 yards, like, you're just going to run into good games. I mean, he threw for 202 yards today versus 111 last week. Obviously, a different game script today. Last week, they were surprisingly blowing out the Chargers. Maybe not so surprisingly. We'll get to the Chargers here in a minute. But the weapons aren't there. So, we can't be too excited about his ceiling. He's still going to run into spike performances, though. When I ran the rest of season projections on him last week, removing Malik Neighbors from the equation, it did drop him down. He had been QB 13. It dropped him to QB 15 or 16. And I think that's about right. So I think if you've got Jackson Dart, he's going to be fine for you on bye weeks. If you like him in DFS, I think you're going to run into spike games because he is this dual threat guy. That, man, he's going to have a game in where we know it's going to happen. He's going to throw for 275 and 3 touchdowns. He's going to rush for 60 and run for 1. So like, he just has more outs than the guys that don't run. It's just hard to move him up too far, especially when we have all these other guys we're talking about that are playing good as pocket passers as well, that are kind of sitting there in a tier. He kind of sits at the bottom of their tier, right? Because he's going to run around and do enough that he belongs to be in the tier, but it's just going to be hard really on a weekly basis to project him as anything more than like the QB 15 or so in my opinion. Just doesn't have the weapons right now.
Especially these next 3 weeks. We got the Eagles and then in Denver and then in Philadelphia. So eases up a little bit after that. But yeah, remember when the schedules got released and everyone freaked out about how hard the Giants was? We are still very much seeing that come to fruition. Of course, both those touchdowns, Dwayne, went to my sicko start. Look at us being experts at picking tight ends that nobody wants to actually play out there. What a great thing to be good at. But Theo Johnson caught 6 of 7 targets for 33 yards. And again, those 2 scores. That said, Daniel Bellinger was pretty involved as well. He caught all 4 of his targets for 52 yards, actually got tackled at the 1 yard line on one of those Theo scores. Was that the move, Dwayne? No more Neighbors, so they just went ahead and pretty much relied on 2 tight end sets?
Yeah, they were using more two tight end sets today, but it was still Theo really in the lead here. Theo had played 81% of the snaps, 78% route participation with an 18% target share. Daniel Bellinger right at a 40% route participation, or actually under that, 36%. He had a 53% snap share. So yeah, they were running more 12 personnel, but when you get to the routes, it was clearly Theo Johnson as the guy that they were getting out into pass patterns more often. So nice job for Theo. 3 end zone targets today for Theo Johnson. So 21.3 fantasy points. I think he does upgrade to like that mid-range tight end 2 territory. I would take Mason Taylor over him, just like I think a more talented player overall as far as like if you look at the draft prospect profile on him. But if you can't get him, he's already gone. You're really hurting at tight end. I think you can do worse than Theo Johnson. Like you mentioned, we do have some really tough matchups coming up here over the next 3 games, but those are teams that all have really good cornerbacks as well. And a lot of times that can funnel some kind of gross stuff to the tight end.
And their setup's not too different, Dwayne. I think Cam Scatterbo and Breece Hall, kind of what they demand in the passing game is similar. Garrett Wilson's obviously going to command a lot more than Wan'Dale Robinson. And with Darius Slayton now being hurt with a hamstring injury, maybe we do see Theo Johnson again just being relied on more than ever. So I'm with you. I will be ranking Mason Taylor at least 1 spot ahead of, Theo, but they really could be right next to each other in those ranks. Speaking of the Darius Slayton, injury, for all of you in those skank leagues out there, was it Jalen Hyatt that was taken over, or was it something named Bo Collins? I actually remember Bo. He made some plays in the preseason. I want to put some respect on his name. That's on me.
Yeah, he did make some plays in the preseason. It was both 56% route participation to Jalen Hyatt, but in true Jalen Hyatt form, 0% target share. We've kind of seen this for 3 years. Came from that weird offense in Tennessee. Made him
no, he had 3.
He did?
Third,
oh, okay. When I looked at it earlier,
third in the
I must
week
have looked
and
at it too soon.
he was third in the week in unrealized air yards. I didn't write him down at first because I was like,
oh yeah, he did. Yeah, 8%.
I was like, oh, look at this.
So it refreshed. So sometimes when I'm pulling these games together as I'm going through, I'm looking at them a little bit earlier. So yeah, good call out. He did have the 3 targets, 38 air yards on the day. So it was him and Bo Collins.
I got you, bro. All right. I think that about does it for this one. The Giants are going to be facing the Eagles on Thursday Night Football here. I don't know. Doesn't sound like a great game, but the way the Eagles play sometimes down their competition, who knows? Moving along, we had the Panthers take it down the Miami Dolphins 27-24. Carolina entered this one as 1.5-point dogs, won outright, and the over managed to cash here at 44.5. So I thought Carolina was ready just to roll over, maybe just on their entire freaking franchise, Dwain. I mean, we had the whole thing with some of the fan media podcasts shutting down last week. Bryce Young has been so uneven. And again, Miami started up 17-0, but kudos to Bryce Young and company, came back and ate that W. That said, really wasn't too impressive of a game from Bryce Young. He was missing just some rough throws early. He made some good ones. I'm not trying to completely crap on the guy. We gave him credit last year in the second half when he was doing his thing. Had a 4th down conversion today in particular that just was good, showed off his mobility. But I guess that's my issue with Bryce. Like when he is grooving, it's just everything is so hard. He's like Caleb Williams, but just slower and without like a fraction of the arm talent, like what Caleb can be doing, and also smaller, which is a pretty bad issue, Dwain. So he's not that accurate and he really lacks physical tools. It's not exactly the creative player I'd be going with if I was firing up Madden here. So all that said, Buck 98, 2 touchdowns through the air. Also got tackled at the 1-yard line, so could have had a bigger fantasy day. And you know what? The offensive line
arm
exactly. I know.
He weighs
195.
I know, but it's back to your point that he doesn't have the physical attributes to make some of these things work that like a guy like Caleb, he's getting in there.
So again, not great, but got the win. Panthers are 2-3. We'll see what happens if Bryce can hopefully get back to partying like it was the back half of. The thing with Bryce, I will say, it's the same thing I say for Justin Fields. I know some of you guys say that, I'd be saying Tua was an incredible quarterback if we went to Ohio State. That was a good message in the chat. Good burn by you guys. I'll take that, take that on the chest. But I will say, I mean, what do I complain about with Justin Fields? Well, his offensive line isn't. Today, they weren't that good. I know they've invested recently, but I always complain about Josh Reynolds being the number 2. Who's the number 2 in Carolina? Xavier Legette right now. Like, we are praying for Jalen Coker to get healthy. And I love Jalen Coker as much as the next cokehead, but like he should be a wide receiver 4 in most offenses, Dwain, not someone who we're begging to come back and save the sad excuse for a professional franchise. So Tetero McMillan, this was supposed to be the boom game that, we were really just going to get excited about against this no-name Dolphins secondary. And he was good. He's always been good, but caught 6 of 8 targets for 73 yards. Is it time for a little bit of a downgrade, Dwain? Because I still believe in the talent, but man, I do not believe in this Panthers passing game overall.
I get it, but it's like we have these other passing games that suck and guys getting a 30% target share like are killing it, So, I mean, it's tough. He had a 30% target share today. He had 120 air yards. He did like almost all of his damage in the first half. He beat his prop bet like in the first quarter or maybe it was mid-second quarter when he passed that. So thought he really was on a way to a big game, potentially, his first 100-yard game of the season. But yeah, I mean, look, it's a terrible passing offense, but it's going to be really tough with McMillan. I mean, we've had him like mid-range wide receiver 2 to low-end wide receiver 2, depending on how many people we have on the slate, how many games we have going. Next week, we'll only have 2 teams on bye. So it might be more of a borderline, might be a high-end wide receiver 3, but I'm not giving up, on McMillan yet. It's just funny how these things work, Ian. We have certain, like I said, we have some guys that you look at it and they're in a terrible offense and they have the target share and you're like, oh man, they're fine. And you're like Garrett Wilson, like, oh, it's fine. It's okay. It's good. Now we're averaging more passing yards per game. Justin Fields, like we said earlier, 243 per game. That's a lot better than what we're getting from Bryce Young, which is under 200 yards per game this year. So I'm going to have McMillan about where we've had him. Like it's just, and plus, man, here's the other problem I'm going to have with McMillan is I went back and watched every one of his pass routes last week, getting ready for Talk Data to me.
He's amazing. Yeah,
dude. And he's just, even when he's not getting the targets, he's open. Like he's open for touchdowns. Like I don't know, like Bryce, like just look at McMillan the whole time. Like, I mean, if I were you, that's what I would be doing, because to your point, Ian, I don't know, man. Leggett had an 85% route participation. He did catch the touchdown. That was a great throw, actually, by Bryce Young, just leading him to the back of the end zone. And instead of trying to turn it into a jump ball, Leggett did a nice job coming under the coverage and then snaring the ball, but only an 11% target share. So, guys, don't fall for Xavier Leggett. That is a complete fugazi.
I'm happy you called it out. It was a great throw. I just wish it didn't take a 17-point deficit to pull some great throws out of Bryce all the time. Same thing with the Cardinals game a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, guys, I literally have just, again, a spreadsheet of game notes I take throughout, questions to, look up later, sheeshes, injuries, all that stuff. And literally for Tedero McMillan, Dwain, I wrote down seemingly open all the time. And he's so big that even when he's not, he's still open. Like, he's a freaking perfect prospect. If you were starting a franchise, Dwain, would you take Tedero McMillan or Travis Hunter if you wanted a baller wide receiver?
McMillan.
I take team. Yeah. You didn't think about it. I wouldn't think about it either. 100%. Yep. So buy if you can, particularly in Dynasty, once we get a real quarterback here one day. The real star of the show, though, Dwain, Rico Dowdle. Oh my goodness, 206 rushing yards. He is just a 7th running back with a 200+ yard rushing effort since 2020. Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Devon Achane, Saquon Barkley, and now Rico Dowdle. Looked good out there, man. Looked explosive. He was picking up yards after contact, hitting the hole hard. 28 receiving yards as well. So yeah, it was against the Dolphins, but I mean, the Dolphins have a better front seven than they do secondary, man. So again, not going to completely freak out here, but I was, I'm not sure if you'll quite get this one, Dwain, but in the movie Beer Fest, they had a character named Landfill who was he was their best player on their beer team. He could drink more beer than anyone. He died. And then his brother, Gil, played by the same guy, came in and he was like, well, if you could also call me Landfill. And then when we had that awkward getting to know you phase, and he's like, and I'm actually a little bit better than what Landfill is doing out here. That's what we have in Rico Dowdle. It's the Chuba Hubbard role. And I'll tell you what, just based on what we've seen so far this year, Rico Dowdle looks better.
Yeah, 32.4 PPR points today if you had Rico Dowdle in your starting lineup. 79% of the rushing attempts, 52% route participation, a 15% target share, played 86% of the 2-minute offense. The sad part about it is once we get Chuba Hubbard back, like Dowdle's just probably going to be a handcuff. Maybe he did enough in this game, Ian, to carve out some work here. But do you really?
Turn to Seattle, which is even worse. Now
right, that is even worse because then we can't use either. So we'll see what happens. Like some coaches, like they could see a performance like this and want to split things more evenly. We had seen Dowdle getting a little bit more work over the last couple of games. So there was a trend kind of already emerging before this game. So to your point, I would not be surprised. It's just sad because I don't think Chuba's necessarily bad. He just hadn't had a chance to have this performance. Not saying he would have done what Dowdle did today. Dowdle played really well. But I think it's a situation like you said. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. I think we still, if we know Chuba's available, we're going to rank him ahead of Dowdle. But man, if it does turn into a committee between these two in this offense, that's just going to be terrible.
Chuba, again, did not practice all week. The last update I'm seeing was from Joseph Pearson. He was considered week to week. Team doesn't plan to place him on IR.
No rush.
No rush.
After this, no rush.
Get healthy, Chuba. And again, I'm not even trying to crap on Chuba. He's been awesome in his career, and seeing how he's come up as being just again hardly a heralded running back coming out of Oklahoma State. Like Chuba's the man, but seriously, get healthy, dude. Because the coach was saying he wasn't ready to come back in the calf. Take your time. It's the Colin Coward thing. We're good. We got Chuba, or no, we got Rico for right now. We're good. Didn't see much from Trevor Etienne, and I think that should about do it with the Panthers. Last thing, Dwain, I was in such a bad spot. I had Brock Bowers on a dynasty team, and I said, you know what? If Brock ever gets hurt, I got Michael Mayer. No freaking problem, man. Well, guess what? He's out too. So I had to start our boy Tommy Tremble's out there, and it was not a good move. So did he not have the full-time role anymore? Because it was a good game last week.
73% route participation. So he was the tight end one. We had Mitchell Evans out there 24% of the time. So it's basically the same role he had last week. He just didn't get the targets. Had a 7% target share today.
Let me see if I can catch my wife leaving and tell her the process was at least right before she completely finishes packing. Over with the Dolphins, Tua, 256 yards through the air, not one, not two, but 3 touchdowns, one each to Jalen Waddle, which was a very well thrown deep ball. Love seeing that from Tua. Another one down the middle of Darren Waller, who just, again, was going off in the first half, guys. He had 5 catches for 78 yards and a score. Honestly, seemed like it was going to be more than that, but again, cooled off a little bit in the second half. And then Devon Achane, who had a relatively quiet day from a yardage perspective. productive, just 30 receiving and 16 rushing. But that catch he made, Dwain, like we've talked about it, just trying to find that next running back who could be a CMCS level receiver. I think our search is over. It's Devon Achane, man. That fade that he caught in the corner of the end zone, like that'd be a sick catch by a wide receiver, let alone a running back. And man, with no more Tyreek this season, like 7 targets in this one, but we could have games where it's going to be 10 or 11. Like other than CMC, Devon Achane is the biggest PPR cheat code that we have at the position.
Yeah, 16.6 PPR points today, and what you could arguably say was not a great game for him. He caught the touchdown to really kind of save things, but 85% route participation and a 21% target share. I actually thought that the Panthers did a pretty decent job, like really focusing on Achane, not just as a runner, but in the passing game. They had defenders really close to him every time he was catching the ball. So little hat tip there. The Panthers defense hasn't been great this year, but they did play Achane pretty well. And he still scored almost 17 fantasy points. So yes, you are absolutely loving it. So he was second on the team, man, behind Jalen Waddle. In targets. So yeah, Achane's here to stay.
And I'll give Tua a little bit of credit. He's now thrown multiple touchdowns in 4 straight games. That's something we said about Matthew Stafford as well. We're not getting the same sort of yardage spikes. He's been under 200 yards in 3 of 5 games this year. But when things are on time for him and he knows where to go to football, Dwain, like that's when Tua is at his best. And I actually tried to quantify this a little bit, looking at EPA per dropback. When Tua throws the ball between 0 and 2.5 seconds after getting it, guys, he's a top 10 quarterback, at least in terms of EPA per dropback. When he holds it, though, and things break down, he has to start moving 3+ seconds time to throw. All of a sudden, he crashes down to 30th. And I think you can see that again when you're watching Dolphins games. Honestly, very similar stats to Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. Just a little weirder because Hurts can obviously run a little bit better than Tua. But that is the passing game. Jalen Waddle, again, caught that 46-yard bomb, looking awesome. We had him ranked, I think, wide receiver 16 consensusly this last week. Dwain, Dolphins next week taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. Could be the same, could be top 12. Either way, he's going to be someone we want in the lineup. Darren Waller, though, the one that, again, continues to impress. He was stretching the seam, looking athletic out there. He's just such a big dude, and he's always been a big dude, but I think in this Dolphins offense that is just full of little wide receivers and running backs out there, maybe he stands out a little more, but looks all the way back, man. Did we see him actually have the full-time route rate after being very limited in week 4?
Yeah, Waller, 68% of the routes, but still a step forward from where he was last week when he wasn't even at 40%. So I think we could see this continue to progress. He scored 18.8 PPR points today. Most of it did come in the first half, but he had an 11.6 average depth of target. So he wasn't just working underneath, got some stuff down the field. And to your point, once they get into the red zone, especially once they're in the green zone inside the 10, because everyone else is so small, he's going to be a key component to their offense whenever they're throwing the ball down inside the 10-yard line. So yes, I do think that Darren Waller upgrades. I don't think we can quite get him into the tight end 1 conversation yet, Ian, but I think he's right there in that range with Mason Taylor. I think he's, we talked about Theo Johnson. If I had to pick one of those guys to carry the rest of the way, I do think it would still be Taylor, but Waller's right there, and I would have Theo right behind him. So getting some waiver wire potential upside here, guys, tight end, a quarter of the way through our fantasy seasons, I guess basically almost a third of the way through our fantasy, a quarter of the way through our fantasy season now. So I will say Jalen Waddle, man, 23 fantasy points today. So 144 air yards, a 16 average depth of target, 3.24 yards per route run. And we talked about it last week on the ranking show with Friedman. Waddle, we've seen it. Whenever we haven't had Tyreek Hill in the lineup in the Mike McDaniels offense, like this guy is absolutely cooked, even though it was more, we had to zoom out and look at it right from the perspective of just plays without Tyreek Hill on the field. So I do think Jalen Waddle's firmly in that wide receiver 2 conversation. Like you said, wide receiver 1 upside. Malik Washington, 63% route participation for the second week in a row, worked behind Nick Westbrook-Akini, who had a 73% route participation. They were trying to do some stuff with Malik Washington, Ian, trying to design stuff for him, but not necessarily like the role we really love, almost more like a Wan'Dale Robinson kind of role. 63% of the time he was in a slot, so getting some mismatches. Solid targets per route run at 20%, but just a really low ADOT at 4.2. And he is a yak monster. You want to get him to the ball in his hands, around the line of scrimmage, but we need a higher route participation than that. So was really hoping we would see more from Washington. But right now, over 2 games, I think we have to look at this as a rotation between him and Nick Westbrook-Akini, which is not ideal.
You see how many yards you got with that target share, Dwain?
I don't know. What? 0 yards? Yeah. Four PPR points. I knew it couldn't be very much.
Only thing I want to push back on is I think Darren Waller should be a tight end one the rest of the way. This week we ranked Zach Ertz, Hunter Henry, Mark Andrews, Dallas Goedert, even Travis Kelce. Why can't Darren Waller beat all those guys? He looks like the number 3, even 2B in this offense. He looks all the way back, man.
Dude, I won't have any argument if somebody wants to rank him there. I mean, I like Waller. We're suddenly acting like the Dolphins offense is good again. So I feel like he's kind of in the same bucket. We can call it better than the Giants offense. Like, I would be fine with that. It's probably a better offense than the Jets. The Jets get supported a lot by the garbage time stuff, which could go away. So I think it's fair. Like, if you want to put Waller ahead, I mean, he scored 19 fantasy points today. Like, we're not going to he shouldn't be on waivers.
Right. And he shouldn't be, definitively ahead of some of these guys. But I'm just saying, man, like Trey McBride, Tyler Warren, Jake Ferguson, Bowers, Laporta, Kincaid staying hot and doing his thing. Like, after that, man, I don't see dudes that I'm just rushing to get. I feel like with Waller, we actually have that familiar Darren Waller upside. And I say this as someone who's been, freaking burned by Waller over the years by drafting the man far too high. But I don't know. It's looking good. Stay healthy, Mr. Waller. So I think that about does it on this one. Yeah, so Dolphins, hopefully they can keep it up, man. Because again, only a few weeks ago, that I was worried about them just kind of almost imploding and the season being over. Mike McDaniel's still someone that who knows how long he's going to be there. But again, at least for the near term, certainly feeling very, very good about Mr. Waller. Let's move on to the Broncos upsetting the Eagles 21-17 in Philly. Denver won outright as 4.5-point dogs. The under cash here at 44.5. So Philly was up 17-3, man, at the start of the fourth quarter. Things were looking good until they were not. So as always, we'll start with the winners. The Broncos, man, won despite having 12 penalties for 121 yards and despite, man, really not looking good on offense throughout the afternoon. J.K. Dobbins in the run game started to get going the second half a little bit. He finished with 79 yards and a short touchdown. But, man, Bo Nix, I mean, I was saying, midway through the game, of course, maybe I was the one that actually triggered the comeback here because I was just saying, like, of all quarterbacks coming in this year, Dwain, not saying Bo Nix has been the worst. Based on the expectations I had for them, realistically, I think Bo Nix has underachieved more than almost anyone. You could maybe say Trevor Lawrence and Geno Smith. Those would be the other guys, but Bo's right in that conversation too. It was good to see the comeback, but still, man, other than just tossing it up and letting Cortland Sutton make some plays, man, nothing has been easy in this passing game.
Yeah, I mean, he gave you 19.9 fantasy points today in a tough matchup. So, I mean, I think that's a positive. He had a really good game last week. So, I think we've got 2 pretty good games from him in a row. I think the other thing we have working for us is that Sean Payton really is showing that he's willing to throw the ball a little bit more. Now, this was a trailing game script today, 39 pass attempts, 29 rush attempts. It's also a pretty up-tempo offense. So, I think there are things to like. I think Nix ultimately ends up being fine. I don't disagree, though, with your assessment. And I think he by far is the biggest disappointment because you didn't have to. Trevor Lawrence was like going undrafted. Geno Smith was a late round pick. Our expectations for those guys might have been a little higher, but most fantasy managers weren't messing with them. And Nix was a guy you were taking in the top 8 fantasy quarterbacks in your fantasy drafts this offseason. So 3 rushing attempts for 22 yards today. So still doing his thing, on the ground. Not like he's like in that tier of really good guys, but we know he can do a little bit of damage with his legs. So I think he's a borderline QB1. Some of it will come down to matchups, but I think there's some positives the last 2 weeks.
And look, fantasy, that's fine. I almost meant more so from a real life standpoint. Fantasy, he's 100% the biggest disappointment. This guy was going as like the QB8, and he just has not been, again, the consistent high-end QB1 that you drafted him to be in this point. But, man, like just 6.3 yards per attempt this year. That's Jake Browning level low. It's down there with Kyler. And just a lot of things I thought were unfairly kind of put against him. The idea that he was this dink and dunk artist, never throwing the ball downfield. Like, we have seen that come to fruition more so this year than what we had in year one. So, they brought in Harvey and Ingram. He's still not exactly working with the world's deepest group of weapons, and they haven't been able to get Harvey and Ingram going. So I don't want to be too hard on the guy. And as you said, the Bengals game was a step in the right direction. Philly's certainly not an easy place to go in and get a win. So I'll hold off now on bashing the guy, but hopefully they can get going a little bit more against that brutal Jets defense, again, in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Dwayne, we did see a nice Monday night from RJ Harvey, but mentioned on the show how, again, 7 of those 18 touches came after Dobbins was pulled after he got his 100 yards. It sure seemed like this is still very much J.K. Dobbins' backfield.
Yeah, nothing else to really add here. It's Dobbins' backfield. 15.4 fantasy points for Dobbins, only 6 for Harvey today. Dobbins had 74% of the rushing attempts. And we did have Tyler Bidet back in the mix. Thank God for that, with a 37% route participation and a 6% target share. So as long as he continues to be there, like Harvey, it's tough to get him in your lineups. You're just not going to know the weeks. Obviously, you shied away, hopefully this week, because you knew it was a tough matchup, and that probably saved you.
Mentioned Sutton making some big catches. Caught 8 of 10 targets for 99 yards. Now is 365 yards on the season. 11th most in the NFL, just ahead of bigger names like Devontae Adams and George Pickens. So really has been great stuff from Sutton. Troy Franklin continued to be good, not great out there. I did like what I saw from Evan Ingram, Dwain. Even before he caught that touchdown, I just made a note to myself that he was looking a little bit more jokerish than past weeks. Again, just a big target out there. Made some nice, catches away from his frame and stuff. And we know the dude actually can be a threat with the ball in his hands, at least relative to most tight ends. So did we finally start seeing a route we can trust a little more from Evan Ingram?
Unfortunately, no. 54% route participation, which I really don't understand it. Like, I don't know why you went after the guy and paid him if this is what you're going to do. Targets per route run, though, 26%. So when he's out there, this is kind of what Sean Payton does. Like when Tyler Bidet's out there, like they target him. Whenever Evan Ingram's out there, they target him. When Marvin Mims is on the field last year, like even though it wasn't much, they would target him. So he likes these trinket players and he likes to have this big rotation. And right now it looks like Ingram is stuck in a rotation with a couple of other tight ends. So the positive is he is getting targeted when he is on the field. 13.3 PPR points today, but man, he could easily dud on you because he's just not playing enough.
We'll see what happens. Again, hopefully the good talent in real life starts to get more good fantasy usage, at least for one day, though. It was a decent enough production on the box score. For the Eagles, I actually got back to throwing the football. Dwain looked good doing it. Jalen Hurts, 280 and 2 touchdowns through the air. Would have breezed past 300. I believe maybe they had the drive going, but all I'm trying to bring up is that he threw an absolute pearl down the sideline to Jahan Dotson, dropped it right in the bucket. Unfortunately, just barely couldn't get that second foot in bounds. But man, hit a 52-yard moonball. Devonta Smith, 47-yard wheel to touchdown. The Saquon Barkley, those are very tough passes for quarterbacks to hit. Not used to usually throwing to the running backs that far downfield. And coulda, shoulda, woulda had a 60-yard touchdown to A.J. Brown down the middle. But man, I don't know if AJB didn't think the ball was going his way. But once you did see the wide receiver corner ISO shot, it sure did seem like AJB's the one at fault there. Really did slow down at the top of his route. So great stuff from Jalen Hurts. And, Dwain, I'm sure now the more mainstream media out there, as much as I would love to think the Fantasy Life show is on TVs around continental America, like the whole issue with this Eagles offense for, 5 weeks has been, oh my God, the pass game. Why can't they throw? Why can't they throw? Why can't they throw? Now the talk this week is, how did Saquon Barkley only get 6 carries out there? Like, look, that's messed up. Sure, you had this 14-point lead going in the fourth quarter. Saquon should be touching the ball more, but Saquon also hasn't done anything with his carries all season. You guys built a 14-point lead over a really good Broncos team, and there was even some fluky stuff going on in the fourth quarter, a fourth down conversion that got called back. I honestly, Dwain, like, it sucks that they lost and stuff, but I think this Eagles team, after seeing that they can still do that through the air, I mean, I feel like they're more dangerous now than I did at the end of last week.
Yeah, I think they're showing that they're a more complete team, even though they lost the game today. They had 38 pass attempts and only 11 rushing attempts as a team. So talk about like flipping the script. The big problem, guys, is they only ran 49 plays today. So, I mean, that's part of what also held down Saquon Barkley's, volume. He still scored the 14.8 fantasy points. I know you signed up for 20 per game. You're not getting that right now. I still think it's going to come. Eagles offensive line has been a little bit banged up. Hopefully that gets healthy. I think Landon Dickerson was kind of banged up again in this one. So not much to add here. Devontae Smith had 100% route participation and a 27% target share. Still 22% for A.J. Brown, even though he played mostly with Patrick Surtain, but continuing to target the guy that's going to line up against Riley Moss on a weekly basis, Ian. Most things in fantasy that people talk about being matchups, they're not even real. It's just variance. People come up with all this stuff. Like, and don't be wrong, like I used to do it too, but like after I researched it multiple off seasons, I'm like, this is a waste of time. Like this stuff is like meaningless, but there are outlier scenarios. And this is one of them. You want the guy that's not going to have Patrick Surtain on him. And it was Mr. Devontae Smith today. So 19.4 PPR points for The guy that basically, what do they call Slim Shady, whatever you want to call him. Like he's out there doing his thing. Dallas Goedert, 10.9 PPR points. Nothing, business as usual. We can move on unless there's another question you got on the Eagles.
I did make a note to look at guys like Riley Moss and see if, the corners next to the top cornerbacks in the league maybe are getting targeted more often. So I love that you brought that up as well. Is this the time to buy low on AJB, Dwayne? We know he's still a beast. It's been weird, but man, it's AJB.
Yeah, I think the challenge is we still need teams to push the Eagles. It was weird that in a leading games, it's a positive data point from the fact that it was a leading game script and they threw the ball against a good pass defense. How much can we react to that? I don't know. But ultimately we need teams that can push the Eagles, and there's just not that many teams that can. So I think we're going to still have some ups and downs, but to your point, AJ Brown's a beast. That's all you really need to know. I mean, and what if he continues just to make so much noise that somehow there is a trade? He has a big contract. It would be really tough to do. So he's going to continue to be mad. To your point, he's going to have to look himself in the mirror, though, on that what should have been a touchdown. That one's on him.
That was a rough one. I'm looking just right now. I mean, AJB for T. Higgins, for DJ Moore. I'm taking those heartbeat for Juwan Jennings. Yeah. These are real trades that were accomplished on Yahoo. Jameson Williams. If I could trade AJB for the wide receiver threes, I know, but you're not Drake. Geez, Ricky Parasol, Jordan Addison. If I can trade AJB for a fellow unfortunate wide receiver 3, I'll take the AJB side almost every time.
Yeah, Pearsall will be a little closer if the knee wasn't injured just because he looks so good, but they're going to get healthier. So he's going to run into some of the same challenges, but we do know the 49ers are pretty much a pass centric offense. So of all the names you named, I think all of them would be slam dunk yeses. Pearsall would be the only one that's close, but really, I mean, where are we going to rank AJ Brown? Rest of season, I'll work on those. I put those out on Tuesday, guys. It goes into all the tools like the trade rater, all those things get powered by that. But I still have a tough time thinking I'm going to be past mid-range wide receiver 2 to low end wide receiver 2 just because of the volatility of the offense. No doubt about it. The dude's an absolute freaking beast that could start going nuts at any time. I think we're going to have ups and downs with this offense depending on the opponent they're playing and how much they think they need to throw.
You're not wrong. We can go back and forth on it all day. I would just say, guys, again, trades like that, 100% sign me up. And if it's not going to happen in your league,
those were great trades. I would take all those that you named.
Hey, go find out. Worst thing that can happen is you get made fun of in the group me briefly. Best thing is whoever just traded you, AJ Brown's getting made fun of in that very same group me. Moving on, we had the Indianapolis Colts beat down the Las Vegas Raiders 40-6. Indy covered with ease as 7-point faves. Under cash just by a hair of 46.5. That is a tough one. So this game was 20-3 at halftime. I mean, it was 40-3 by the beginning of the fourth quarter. So very much, in hand for Indy throughout. And yeah, man, Daniel Jones, another 2 passing touchdowns, 212 through the air, 20 of 29, didn't take a sack, didn't turn the ball over, just continues to be, a breath of fresh air relative to what we saw throughout most of his career, continues to be a low-end QB1, and I'm going to continue to answer him in the majority of start-sit questions involving those sort of archetypes. Shout out Anthony Richardson, got in at the end, completed a 9-yard pass, Dwayne, to himself. Got shoved by the lineman, got a first down with it. That was fun to see. Jonathan Taylor, 3 touchdowns, all short yardage variety. I mean, he didn't have a long run over 16 yards. I guess the real question, Dwayne, just comes down to what do we see from this wide receiver room? A.D. Mitchell allegedly got doghouse. That was a rumor coming in. Also, still didn't have Alec Pierce for one more week while he deals with that concussion.
Yeah, Mitchell, a 6% route participation. So, rule of thumb, guys, don't flip the ball at the end zone before you get there. Amari DiMercato, we will get to you in a moment. But yeah, looking at the passing offense, pretty much status quo. It was Pittman with 14.9 PPR points today at 29% target share. Tyler Warren at 14.4. So those are your 2 leaders in the clubhouse for the season. 21% target share to Warren, and for Pittman, 23%. Did see a little bit more of Josh Downs today, 72% route participation in a game where they were leading. Normally in a game like this, you could easily see Josh Downs at 50%. Now he still played 85% of the slot routes from the slot, but did get a little bit more run today. Dude had a 35% targets per route run, 26% target share today for Josh Downs.
Too, man. He was after the catch. So we know he's still so good.
Just play him outside and get over it, man. Just get over it. But they don't seem willing to do that. It was Ashton Doolin, Ian out there. Elon, 84% route participation with a 16% target share. So, yeah, look, Downs, a very talented wide receiver. There are offenses where I have no doubt that Josh Downs would be talking about him as a borderline wide receiver one. It's just right now, very crowded room in Indy, but you want to keep him stashed on your bench, guys, because you just don't know like what will happen over the course of the season. Just real quick shout out to JT though, man, 24.3 fantasy points per game. I do remember another show. I don't know what day it was on. We'll say July 19th when Ian said, what if Jonathan Taylor is this year's Saquon Barkley? You said those words on a show, and you're like, hey, man, got a good offensive line. What if suddenly the offense plays a little better under Shane Steichen? Same archetype back, not going to catch a ton of balls, but could score a lot of touchdowns, can hit the long runs. You were right, Mr. Hartitz. 31.6 PPR points a day from JT. He's the running back 2 on the season behind only CMC.
Absolutely balling. Just good to see him healthy again, man. Because I remember going back through and I tried to every offseason, like look at what running backs had these September injuries that they played through and we kind of forgot about. And JT's been on that list, unfortunately, like 3 straight years. I am knocking on wood again. Very, very fun to see a healthy JT out there doing his thing. Another touchdown from Michael Pittman, Dwain. I've been a little hesitant in shoving him really like into the top 20, but man, he's been a wide receiver 1 this year. Not saying we're going to necessarily rank him as that, but far more lineups than not, man. I know Pittman and Josh Downs were going right next to each other, and really Pittman has been winning that out in a major way. So I know Tyler Warren there is still going to get his thing, and the offense goes through Jonathan Taylor first and foremost. But Michael Pittman, man, every single year of his career, other than last year playing through the back injury, has put up wide receiver 2 numbers or better. Looking like 2025 is going to be another brick in the wall there. So I think that is about it on the Colts. They're going to be taking on the Cardinals next week. Certainly another secondary that I think they can have some success against. Last point, I know Ashton Dulin, and Alec Pierce is coming back next week anyway, but 55 yards and he returned the kickoff for a touchdown. Unfortunately got called back, but Ashton Dulin,
dude, a great catch on the sideline where he got obliterated, hung on to the ball like that. That was ridiculous. I don't think it ended up even counting as a catch because he got knocked out of bounds, but just holding on to that ball, that was amazing.
I remember just watching him make plays in the preseason. I was like, if A.D. Mitchell did any one of these things, people will be losing their minds right now. So not enough respect in the world for Ashton Dulin. Over with the Raiders, another rough one for Geno Smith truthers in the world. I even saw Mina Kimes go ahead and just, do what any sane, smart person would say, that no, of course he's not playing good, when she said he was playing good, just like all of us. Yeah, he was playing good, not so much right now. So it is okay to change our opinions, people, as new information comes to the surface. And unfortunately, Dwayne, new information this year is that Geno Smith has the potential to be a very bad professional quarterback for 60 minutes of action. So just 228 through the air. Yes, the offensive line is banged up. And honestly, with no Brock Bowers out there, we can go back to the lack of weapons argument that we've also been talking about for guys like Justin Fields and stuff. But just at this point, Dwayne, Brock Bowers sounds like he's week to week. I'm not sure when he's going to be back. Michael Mayer, hopefully we'll be back from the concussion. Maybe we can talk about him. But in Las Vegas, man, I'd love if Jacoby Myers can get going. Trey Tucker's flashed here and there, but it's Ashton Jeanty and everyone else.
Yeah, and one of these was a batted pass that went up in the air. So Geno's had some bad luck interceptions, but he's also thrown some really bad ones as well. So, I mean, it's kind of a mix of things. Like, I still think Geno, like, I don't think he suddenly changed, but it's not ideal this season. So, I mean, we can't argue with the turnovers that have been
he
there.
Plays a very volatile range of football. He throws the ball downfield more than other guys. And right now it's going bad. So,
yeah. So, a couple of quick takeaways here. Do you want to start with the passing game or the run game? You know, start with the receivers or?
Well, okay. Ashton Jeanty's still a workhorse back. He's top 12. We love him.
Yeah. Real quick on him. Like, through 3 quarters, I'm sorry, I have to 15.9 PPR points. So it was a blowout. In the fourth quarter, he did not play at all. So up to that point, 82% snaps, 78% of the attempts, 69% route participation, nice. A 29% target share. He was the guy that was essentially replacing their tight ends underneath in the passing game. And one of them wasn't underneath. It was a play right out of the gate down the field on the sideline to Jeanty. And guys, he was a prolific receiver the year before he came out into the NFL draft. Now, the final year at Boise State, they mostly loaded him up in the run game, but that year before, he was a prolific receiver out of the backfield. So, actually, Jeanty gets an upgrade, like coming out of this game, another one. He got one last week. The one other quick thing on the running back room, Mostert's the clear running back too, guys. Like, I know it's not a great offense right now, but Mostert is a guy that's available on most waiver wires. So if you're just absolutely hurting for like a handcuff back, I think Mostert is clearly taking that over, and he played 100% of the 2-minute offense today.
Great points all around. Again, one of my favorite stats I found kind of during the whole college football draft process was over these past, past decade, Dwain, minimum 40 targets, only running backs average 3+ yards per out run in a single season, which was Genty in 2023, Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Ashton Genty. That's it. Love seeing him get more usage. Don't love that it's coming at the expense of Brock Bowers not being out there, but sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. So you sounded like you had a takeaway on the wide receivers as well.
Yeah, so status quo with Myers and Tucker, like it wasn't necessarily the day. Tucker gave you 11.1 fantasy points, but for you guys that are in the sicko leagues, Jack Besh is eating into Tyquan Thornton's workload. First 3 quarters, so just knowing that it was a blowout, and I don't know what they did with all the players in the fourth quarter. You just heard what I said about Genty, but it was Jack Besh with 46% of the routes and 54% to Thornton. So if for some reason you were hanging on to Thornton, you thought, oh, well, at least he's in a full-time role, he's out there. We'll see what happens next week, but Besh is the guy they drafted ahead of him. So I think there's a chance we could start to see a change because Thornton just hasn't done very much with his opportunities. It could also just be that Besh is the better fit to play inside and do some of the things that the tight ends do. And so as long as you have Bowers out, so can't say for sure, but in this game, we did see Besh start to get a little bit more work.
Blast from the past, Dwain. Alberto caught 5 of 6 targets, 36 yards. Again, Michael Mayer was limited. He was questionable. You just got to clear the protocol, so it wasn't like he couldn't be a game time decision. But I think he is pretty close to getting back. That said, if he's not, did we see a full-time role for Alberto, Dwain?
No, 59%. Ian Thomas was also out there, but yeah, 25% targets per route run. So doing true Albert O things, doing the little underlying things. We're like, oh man, maybe this guy's good. Maybe he's good. 8.6 PPR points. So like, look, absolute skank league. I'll be honest, like they need to bench Brock Bowers until he's well. I know you guys don't want to hear that, but Brock Bowers isn't Brock Bowers right now. Like you're honestly better off like just being without him for 2 or 3 games and hopefully letting him get back from this knee injury because it's just not the same. Bowers is obviously pushing to play. So hopefully the coaching staff will just step in and say, hey man, like we just need to let you get better.
He's been playing through a PCL injury and bone bruise per Adam Schefter. They are going to go ahead and just consider him week to week. Yeah, I'm not overly confident when he's going to be back next week against the Titans, but to your point, I don't want him back if, again, he's going to be a complete shell of his former self. So get better soon, Brock. Guys, before we go ahead and move on to Texans Ravens, I did just want to say, if you want Fantasy Life Plus for free, you can have it. How freaking cool is that, guys? FantasyLife.com/Comet, okay? You just need to download the Comet browser by Perplexity, and you'll get a full year of Fantasy Life Plus for free. That's over $100 value. Again, why go ahead and just wait until August when you're ready for draft season when you can do it now? You can get all of our rankings. You can get Dwain's world-class utilization report. And also, Dwain, I know you've actually used the Comet browser by Perplexity, and it's less of kind of a, just general AI search engine and more of almost a sidekick, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely love it, man. I use it a lot for injury information. It's done a really good job. So a lot of times whenever you're trying to search for things like that, you'll run into a lot of information. You're like, oh man, this is not right. So yeah, absolutely love using it. You can integrate it into like your daily workflow, not trying to sound like a commercial here, but like, you can sync it with your calendar, all sorts of different things. Like if I was coming to Ohio, I could say, hey, find me a night to hang out and talk football and eat with Mr. Ian Hartitz, and it can go help me do that. So the other thing I would just say really quickly, guys, like, yeah, you're getting the utilization report, but man, like I am so proud of like what we've done, Ian, on the trade analyzer, guys. Like that thing is working really good, and we're working hard on the data behind the scenes that feeds that with the rest of season projections. Like we're accounting for injury timelines to teammates and when they're returning. What does that do to impact the player? Obviously, the player's injuries. I'm monitoring the utilization trends every week and updating all those things. That all feeds the trade analyzer, and then man, the start sit tool. Like pretty much you're like me and you probably get like 20 start sit questions via text alone, like on a Sunday. Dude, I just been sending it, and I'll be honest, there's not been really trade. I get it, guys. I work for Fantasy Life. I'm obviously going to be biased. I help, build the data that goes into the tools. But I just send it to them. I'm like, guys, like I was doing it for our lineups. Ian and I have a ton of drafts together. I was putting all of them into the start sit tool because it gives you ceiling, it gives you median, it gives you a floor projection. You could say, are you an underdog in the game? Is it a toss up? Are you the favorite to win? So Zoe came down this morning and we were trying to make a call in her lineup. We got Javonte Williams in there over Cam Scattaboo, which I told her she should be doing anyway, but I showed it to her in the tool. She came to me later in the day. She goes, hey, Dad, looks like that tool was right. I was like, yeah, like the tool works.
Funny how that works. Again, guys, fantasylife.com/comment. Download the comment browser by Perplexity, and you will get a full year of Fantasy Life Plus for free. Gotta love that. And now back to the show. The Houston Texans massacred the Baltimore Ravens 44-10. This was 24-3 Texans at halftime. And honestly, it didn't even feel that close. So CJ Stroud was starting to get cooking down the stretch last week, and that went over the Titans. Really kept on keeping on here. 244 yards, 4 touchdowns through the air on 23 of 27 passing. Always good when you have as many touchdowns as you did incompletions on the day. Also, Dwain ripped off a 30-yard rush. I swear to God, I have seen every, basically snap of CJ Stroud's career ever since he debuted against Minnesota back in that lovely season opening win for the Buckeyes. I have never seen him run that fast. It's so funny. It comes literally a couple days after he had the viral quote saying that he was watching his old high school highlights, couldn't believe that he wasn't that fast anymore. Maybe it was just an offensive line finally giving him something, Dwain. Only pressured on 20% of his dropbacks. That was his lowest single game mark since week 5 of 2023. So Houston Texans are going to have a week 6 bye to hopefully go ahead and just keep this momentum. I know they played the Titans and they played the freaking just injury-riddled Ravens with backups and everywhere. But at least, Dwain, for 6 quarters now, we've seen some good out of this Texans offense.
6 passing touchdowns over the last 2 games, 233 and 244 yards. He's given you 18 and 29 fantasy points. And on the rushing stuff, man, he's been scrambling all season. He's averaging 24.4 yards per game, and most of that is coming via scrambles. So Stroud kind of taking I think a lot of these quarterbacks looked at what Baker did last year, and I think you're having the coaches talk to him about it as well. And so, yeah, I think this is I think at this point we have to say CJ Stroud's probably going to run for 15 to 20 yards per game. And that may not seem like a lot, guys, but that's 1.5 to 2 fantasy points per game. So, yeah, 2 good games in a row from CJ Stroud. You love to see it.
Found Nico Collins for one of those touchdowns, also caught 4 of his 5 targets for 52 yards. Again, just didn't really need to keep their foot on the gas. My arch nemesis, Dalton Schultz, had a good day at the office. I can't admit that. Caught 5 of 6 targets for 60 yards. And also, welcome to the NFL. Jalen Noel caught his first career touchdown, hit the Ray Lewis celly. That's a great move to do at weddings. If you're a white boy like me who cannot dance, just go ahead and just start doing Ray Lewis stuff in the middle of the dance floor. Your date might not love it, but there will be some dudes out there who just go ahead and tell you, cool move, I guess. Moving on though, Dwain. Xavier Hutchinson, not 1, but 2 touchdowns. You like that, Dwain? He is good at football. Admit it.
Fugazi, 12% targets per route run, 10% target share. It was a great catch on the back shoulder throw down in the end zone. The first one was kind of a schemed up thing. He gave us 16.8 PPR points. He is still the guy out there, the second most. He had a 71% route participation, which was ahead of Christian Kirk. It was ahead of the rookies. So he's continuing to hold on to the third wide receiver or to the second wide receiver role ahead of some of these other guys. But yeah, got lucky, caught the 2 touchdowns. I don't want to say lucky. Like I said, it was a good touchdown catch, but it's kind of like the Nick Westbrook-Akini thing. Like that's what we got going here.
Christian Kirk could have used a little bit more luck, caught a 47-yard pass, got tackled just short of the goal line. I think it was the 3-yard line, not quite the 1, but Kirk continuing to do some pretty good things as well. So again, passing game starting to hit his stride. It doesn't sound like these rookies are going to have a great chance post-bye, but you know what? We have seen weird things happen. That said, Dwain, the real story here is unfortunately Woody Marks not exactly ascending to the RB1 heights that many were expecting when they blew an awful lot of fab on him. So talk about Woody Marks and what we saw with his split with Nick Chubb.
Actually led the team in snaps, 52% of the snaps versus 46% for Chubb. 50% of the rushing attempts went to Chubb in this one, 35% to Marks. Marks was the guy out there on passing downs, 46% versus 4%. So really more like what we saw 2 weeks ago from Marks. And this is something we talked about, whenever we talked about it on the utilization report this last week on the Fantasy Life show, that as much as we like Marks and he looked like he would be a low end running back 2 moving forward, we had a 2-game sample. And so we really needed to look at it for those 2 games. So, and that's what this is. If you took those 2 games and you put it together, like I know the fantasy points weren't there with 2.4, But this is about the role that he's had over the first 2 games. So I wouldn't completely panic over Woody Marks. Obviously, we know that it can be game script dependent now, though, and there can be games where Chubb can still lead the way. So that's going to make him more of a running back 3 than a running back 2 until we see something really change. But, hat tip to Nick Chubb, man. Played really good today, scored 12.4 fantasy points, and just looked good running the ball. So, I mean, look, it could also be a hot hand kind of thing. But, guys, just know that Woody Marks was out there just as much as Nick Chubb.
Not easy, Dwayne. But again, we did bring up RB25 for this last week. Like there was hesitation in moving him ahead of guys who we were more confident in with the role. Hopefully it does keep on moving. Again, the allure for picking up someone like Marks was that he does have this ascension in his range of outcomes without an injury happening. I do not believe that has gone anywhere. So again, we'll see what happens, man. It's a bye week coming up. And what do we usually see happen? Not usually, but what do we see happen after buys a lot? That rookie bump. We'll see if Woody Marks can go ahead and get one. And then to the Cooper Rush-led Baltimore Ravens. 3 interceptions on the day for the former backup Cowboys quarterback. Ravens only had the ball, man, for 23 minutes and 27 seconds. So just 20 pass attempts. And I think run game combined, they only had about 19 carries as well. So it was good to see Derrick Henry get more than 12 carries. Still only 15. Wound up pounding his way into the end zone from 1 yard out to not completely kill the day. But, man, Dwayne, like I'm probably still going to find a way to get Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers in lineups next week against the Rams. But I'm not going to feel particularly great about it.
Yeah, I mean, look, you kind of got to throw the game away because it's Cooper Rush, but we've been saying throwaway game a couple of times now for the Ravens, even when they had Lamar Jackson. So obviously Lamar raises the ceiling of what they can do offensively. Would you have thought the Ravens would be 1-4 after 5 games in this NFL season? They are in serious trouble right now of even making the NFL playoffs, which is just a wild thing to say. But we talked about it last week on this show. Derrick Henry is now a game script dependent running back. It's what we saw in Tennessee, right? When he would get those trailing game scripts and suddenly he comes off the field, he's not the guy going to be doing the passing down work. That's really Justice Hill here. So you need the touchdown. And he did give you that today, even though it was ugly. At least he gave you the touchdown to give you something. But yeah, Derrick Henry has to get a downgrade. There's just no way around it right now. Now, I don't want to get crazy with it because we could immediately see Lamar come back and just see things open up. And honestly, with the defense playing as bad as it is, like this is an offense we could still see catch fire. This is an offense that we could still see like put up massive fantasy points, even if they're not playing that great in real life as far as what their record looks like. So the one thing I'll say is we did have Keaton Mitchell active, probably due to Lamar. Lamar Jackson is really the third running back, right, on the team on most weeks. But we did have Keaton Mitchell active today. So if you're playing in a really gross skank league, I do think if something, knock on wood, we'd never want this to happen. If Henry went down, I think Mitchell's probably in line to be, not to dominate the carries, but I think he would lead in rushing attempts, and we would see Justice Hill get an uptick as well and take the passing down work. So if you're playing in a really gross league like Ian, some of the leagues Ian and I play in, Keaton Mitchell for like a min fab bid kind of thing, but a guy that you could stash.
And to be clear, my pessimism about Henry and Flowers was more so if we have to have Cooper Rush under center again next week against Jared Verse and the Rams. Jay Glazer did report this morning that Lamar has, quote, an outside shot to play week 6. So I don't love how that sounds. And again, the Ravens have a week 7 bye, so I still think it makes the most sense for Lamar to probably take the extra 2 weeks and then be ready to go.
1-4. He's playing. Call it now. He's playing.
That's true. That's true. Against the Rams.
I'll take Lamar with half a hamstring if I'm the coaching staff. Like as fantasy managers, like we don't want him to re-injure himself. But I think they're going to have Lamar out there. They have to.
You got an extra bye after it to go ahead and just heal up from taking the beating. There we go. We have gone a 180 on that. So hopefully, again, that will help Derrick Henry and everyone else involved. Let's move on to the late afternoon slate of action. We had the Titans get that winless monkey off their back, take down the Cardinals 22-21, and just take one swift sword straight into my survivor pool's gut, Dwayne. Over. It's done. I'm done for the season. I had fun, but now I suck.
You don't have to worry about it anymore, Ian. One less decision on the week.
Extra 10 seconds for my family. There we go. Gave me. Ryan Fitzpatrick afterwards said it was the worst loss he has ever seen, people. And the reason for that, it was one of those win percentage charts that, again, just looks like a complete roller coaster down until it shoots right back up at the end. The Titans were down 21-6 at the start of the fourth quarter when Amari DiMercato took off for what should have been a 72-yard touchdown. And then he pulled an A.D. Mitchell. This was even worse than an A.D. Mitchell. At least A.D. and whatever went through his mind, he kind of tried to like move the ball the opposite hand. Amari just got lazy. The dude basically hawked him, and then Amari dropped dropped the ball anyway. Lost the fumble. Titans got a touchdown after that. And then it seemed like everything was going to be fine when Cam Ward threw an interception. The Cardinals player then fumbles the ball, and then like the most NFL blitz play I've ever seen, Tyler Lockett winds up jumping on it in the end zone for a Titans touchdown. Before any of that happened, Dwayne, the Cardinals were in field goal range. Kyler Murray let a snap hit him in the face. It fell on the ground. The Titans recovered. They lost their field goal position. And then Kyler somehow, by getting hit in the face with the football, injured his foot and had to miss a little bit of time. This is one of the weirdest games I have ever seen. And I don't think I'm being a prisoner of the moment here.
Yeah, no, like that was a wild, however many minutes or seconds that was. One of the wilder rides that I can remember. But to your point, hey, the Titans have the same record as the Ravens. They're 1-4. They come out here with a victory, and Cam Ward didn't throw a touchdown today, but really looked the best he's looked all season. Threw for 265 yards.
Yes, man. Because again, I was even joking in one of my articles where like his flashes this year so far were these pretty ill-advised throws, honestly, back across the field. He hit them. I think they were both to Alec Manor and stuff. But today we actually saw some stuff down the sideline to Calvin Ridley, a freaking missile down the middle to Ridley. And again, he continues to have this double-digit ADOT. Ward is going out there and trying to do his thing. It was nice for at least one day for him to go ahead and get Ridley going. Caught 5 of 10 targets for 131 yards, Dwayne, proving that he's still capable of getting open. Now, it was against the Arizona Cardinals, all kinds of injuries in their secondary. I do not want to freak out. But hey, next week we are seeing the Cardinals travel to Indy to take on a Colts secondary that isn't exactly, a world-beating group in their own right either. So I'm cautiously optimistic we can get a usable game out of Ridley. Am I going to be ranking him inside my top 30 confidently? I will not be. But again, one good piece of data there. That said, Dwayne, I want to get your thoughts on the running back room because Tajay Spears was back, and then let me know what happened at tight end after hearing that Gunnar Helm would have a bigger role.
Yeah, Pollard, 14.8 fantasy points. Apparently, all he needed was to know that Tajay Spears was active, Ian, to get his act together, and he had his best game of the season. Still pretty much the same role, 71% of the snaps, 74% of the rushing attempts, 67% route participation, played most of the 2-minute offense. I will say Spears, we knew he would probably be on a snap count coming back from that high ankle sprain. I do think that Spears will start to eat into Pollard's workload. Not that anyone's going to buy it on an offer around Pollard, but if I could get rid of him right now, I really would, Ian. I would pretty much take like a bag of pretzels. These pretzels are making me thirsty. One of the best Seinfeld episodes.
I was going to say Cheetos. We were on the same page.
Yeah. That's a great episode, by the way, guys. That's season 3, episode 11. It's also the one where they fail to hold the rental car. And they say the key part of just because I'm watching season 3 right now, and I made a note of it because Friedman and I go back and forth in our DMs about what's the best Seinfeld episode. I think we may do an off-season show where we rank them, but that one's definitely in the top 5. So yeah, with the tight ends real quick, Chick Okonkwo saw his route participation come down. I don't know. I keep going after that. 62% route participation, and it was Gunnar Helm as the tight end won by a smidge with a 65% route participation. I did use Perplexity AI, guys, to search and see, did Chick Okonkwo miss time in this game due to an injury? Did he get hurt in the game? Asked it to search Twitter, beat reporters. There was no word of it. So if it did happen, I'm not aware of it. It was Gunnar Helm actually getting a little bit more playing time. Kind of a gross split. They like to run some 12 personnel as well. I mean, both of them were over 60% routes. Does it matter? Not really. You don't want to play anyone from this offense if you can avoid it. Ridley, like you mentioned, Ian, 18.1 PPR points. And I know that that was good to your best ball teams. You needed it.
Yeah, we finally got to use him. I was still hoping it would be before week 5, Dwayne, but better late than never, I guess. Final point would just be, Tajay Spears. I know he didn't get many touches, but he didn't get many yards on it, but he did do his typical Tajay Spears thing, trying to reverse field. And he looked healthy enough coming back from the injury. So hopefully we will see some better days ahead from Tajay Spears. Now over to the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray looked good early on. And by good, I mean he was at least giving Marvin Harrison Jr. chances to go up there and make some plays. And my God, Dwayne, he was doing it. Freaking Moss, 2 defenders early on, was about 6 inches away from scoring a touchdown. Unfortunately, landed just short of the goal line. Made another nice back shoulder. And then also just had a couple nice routes where he and Kyler were on the same page. Things were going great. And then I don't think he had a target in the last like 40
He
minutes of
didn't.
football. So, again, the Cardinals were up for so long that I get it. But at the same time, man, like you just look at these box scores every single week and like the random tight ends and backup wide receivers that just find their way to 3 or 4 targets. I don't even want to necessarily blame Kyler. It could be Drew Petzing, it could be whoever. But as much as the last 6 quarters of football, Dwain, have maybe been the best we've seen Marv look, it's still hard to treat him as anything more than the boomer bust wide receiver 3 because who knows when he's going to get enough volume.
That's what he is. I have nothing to add on these receivers. It's pretty much status quo. You mentioned Harrison, 13.8 PPR points today. It felt like we might be about to get a 25-point game. Ended the day with a 17% target share, and the typical Trey McBride leading the team with 23%, even though he only gave you 9.1 PPR points.
Well, Sam McBride did have a 32-yard gain nullified on a hold. Again, maybe the hold helped create the gain in the first place. I understand that's a reality, but bigger days will be ahead there. So I misspoke before. The Cardinals are playing the Colts next week. The Titans are playing the Raiders. Still 2 pretty good matchups for the passing games either way. That said, Dwain, the big note here is this running back room. We were not sure what was going to go on. We believed that Michael Carter would be the lead back, and lo and behold, that actually is what wound up happening.
Yeah, Michael Carter, 18.3 PPR points for you today. 59% of the attempts, 59% of the snaps, 67% of the attempts, 50% of the snaps inside the 5, 49% route participation, and he had a 17% target share. And that's something we've seen from Carter in the past. Like he can be a handy back out of the backfield, had a 28% targets per route run in this game. Did not play the 2-minute offense. They gave most of those snaps to Emari DeMercado, who gave you 9.4 PPR points today, Ian. But like we mentioned, it could have been 15.4 on the long play that should have been a touchdown. Didn't see as much of DeMercado after that. We'll see if that trickles over into the next game. And then we had Bam Knight also getting a little bit of work. He did have a rushing touchdown today. He played 16% of the snaps and had 15% of the attempts. But yeah, Carter, it's a 3-way rotation here. But we heard that he was probably going to be the lead back. He was the lead back in this game. So I think we just pretty much run with it. Like I'm not going to get crazy with him. I think he upgrades to borderline running back 2 territory. You get another game like this, we might feel a little bit more comfortable moving him up a little bit. We just have a lot of good running backs in that mid-range running back 2 area right now, like Scattaboo and a lot of these other guys. So maybe Carter ends up in the same conversation as them, but I think for now, a borderline running back 2.
Probably like where Woody Marks was this week, but no, we're not moving him up at Rico and Rashad White and Scattaboo and those guys there. So good stuff on that. And I think with that, we are good on the Arizona Cardinals. So let's move on, Dwain, to our Xfinity Game of the Week, brought to you by Xfinity. Imagine all your football all in one place. Easy. Xfinity, imagine that. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers took down the Seattle Seahawks 38-35. Tampa winning outright as 3.5-point dogs. The over cash with ease at 44.5. This was such a fun game to watch, Dwain. We had the Buccaneers averaging 7.3 yards per play. Seahawks averaging 8.6 yards per play. It reminded me of a prime Tony Romo game where Sam Darnold, in this case being Tony Romo, just playing lights out football for 59 minutes, and then he throws a pick late, and that's all everyone talks about instead of a defense that couldn't hold the opposition under 38 points. So again, Darnold, whatever, we'll get to him in a couple minutes, but just Baker Mayfield, Emeka Egbuka, Rashad White, absolutely balling out. And, shout out to Hayden Winks over Underdog Fantasy for pointing out that Emeka Egbuka, Dwain, 3rd all time in fantasy points through his first 5 NFL games behind Randy Moss and Puka Nacua. Who gives a shit if the guy separates at an elite level or a really good level? The dude is freaking amazing out there. There's nothing else to say. He's amazing.
Yeah, man. And this is why we love separation data. It's a nice extra data point, but we've looked at it. We've talked about it. It's not predictive for fantasy. And just the way separation works based on whether you're facing zone coverage or man coverage, like when you're watching film, Ian, you see it all the time. Like it's a hard thing, honestly, to judge as well, which is why I think part of it is not very sticky. And when you see a guy like Egbuka, as young as he is, scoring the fantasy points that he's scoring, and his target share hasn't been elite or anything, but he's at 23% for the year. But as a rookie on a team with other weapons that they like, Mike Evans early in the year, now you get Chris Godwin back. Like sometimes you just got to throw all that crap out the window and say, man, this is a young player that's absolutely balling out. 20.5 fantasy points per game on the season now, Ian. He is a top 6 fantasy receiver, probably like a top 3 fantasy receiver. I didn't look to see where he was in the order. But yeah, Emeka Egbuka, like just absolutely balling out and just showing, man, like he's not just this underneath merchant. Now, last week, I know a bit of a busted coverage, but today an 18.7 average depth of target, winning more downfield, not just on busted coverage stuff. So, dude, Emeka Egbuka looks like a superstar at this point.
Again, caught the one tighter window touchdown. It's not like he's the only wide receiver going out there and doing that, but also ran a real nice smooth out and up. That probably could have been a second touchdown, just a little bit underthrown from Baker, had to settle for a 57-yard gain instead. So Seahawks secondary was without Devon Witherspoon, and also we saw Reek Woolen get banged up with a concussion. So maybe a good data point when the Seahawks take on the Jaguars next week to be a little bit higher on those pass catchers. But yeah, Emeka Egbuka, low-end wide receiver one coming into this. If you want to rank him in the top 5, I mean, who are we to complain about that at this point? Did we see anything else beyond him, Dwain? Chris Godwin, obviously only 26 scoreless yards on 4 targets, so had the full-time role, I'm assuming. But Tess Johnson, Sterling Shepard also factoring in this passing game. And also, after I spent week 3 talking about Kate Otten. You spent week 4. Kate Otten was ready to go in week 5.
Naturally, Kate Otten gave you 12.1 PPR points today. You can't really trust it, though, especially as this team gets healthy. He's going to be the odd man out. But we tried, and, if you guys needed him, like, that's how fantasy works, right? Ian and I back-to-back went after it. It didn't work, so, of course, this is the week it happens. Tez and Shepard, 50% route participation for Tez and 53% for Shepard. So just like, everybody on the Bucs scored fantasy points today except for Chris Godwin. It was 28 for Egbuka, 12 for Shepard, 10 for Tez, 12 for Otten. So yeah, like all these guys were out there. And that happens when you throw for 379 yards like Baker did, averaging 11.5 yards per attempt, just freaking dealing in this game. So yeah, nothing we can really do with those guys. We know we're going to have Mike Evans back. Hopefully this next week we'll see Evans. We'll see what happens. He could miss another game here. But Godwin, just real quick, only 5.6 PPR points. He did play 79% of the routes, had a 13% target share. So like, I think the best thing to do is you zoom out over the last 2 games that he's been back. 86% of the routes with a 20% target share. Like, you guys are going to take that and the Bucs offense. I get it. He gave you 5.6 points today, but I do think Godwin will get going, just knocking the rust off.
Again, shout out to Baker. And the passing game as a whole, man, 90.6 QBR on a scale to 100. The passer rating was 134 out of like 158.3, which again, sometimes tells you a little more about the passing game than just the quarterback performance. But yeah, the whole passing game freaking great in Tampa. The run game didn't miss too much of a beat either, Dwain, without Bucky Irving, at least in terms of their lead running back, putting up some fancy numbers. Rachaad White found the end zone twice on the ground, also chipped in 30 receiving yards, and just very clearly was the lead RB1. We were hoping it was only going to be a spot start. Sounds like it could be a bit more because not only is Bucky Irving dealing with an ankle injury, we also found out he has a shoulder injury, a subluxation, Dwain, that's expected to sideline him for at least 2 weeks. So it sounds like the Rachaad White show will go on at least for week 6 in their matchup against the San Francisco 49ers. He's going to be tough to keep out of fantasy lineups of most shapes and sizes.
Yeah, I think he's a borderline running back 1 now. 23.1 PPR points, 81% of the snaps, 74% of the rushing attempts, all the work inside the 5, 13% target share on a 63% route participation, played all the 2-minute offense. So I get it, guys. Doesn't look as good as Bucky Irving, but like when White gets these full-time roles, we've seen it now. He's going to score the fantasy points, and he has that really important role as the passing down back, and Baker likes to throw the ball to him. So, yeah, Rachaad White, borderline running back 1 until we get Bucky Irving back. And look, we're talking about Todd Bowles here. So, like, do we really know when we're getting him back? We have no clue. I know it says 2 weeks, but in like Todd Bowles, weeks, like you talk about dog years, like this could be longer than that. So hopefully it is just 2 games for Bucky Irving. I know we both love him. We've drafted him a lot. So we're with you guys. We're feeling the pain. But yeah, for now, Rachaad White is the dude. And I wouldn't expect it. Honestly, I'm not really expecting it to change because this goes all the way back to last year. I don't know what happened with Sean Tucker, but essentially starting in their playoff push last year, they just erased him from the offense, even in a game where we had Bucky Irving injured. And then we get this data point. Sean Tucker's hardly done anything all year, and he only played 21% of the snaps today. He's fine right now because we don't know for sure how long Bucky Irving's going to be out. So he's worth having as a stash, on your roster if you're in a deeper league. But otherwise, yeah, not ideal for Sean Tucker, just a handcuff to Rachaad White.
6 catches, -1 yardage, Dwayne. Not sure that's going to be the performance Tucker needed to go ahead and earn some more touches. So we'll see what happens in the future. For now, wheels up for Rashad White. On the other sideline, Seattle Seahawks, again, Sam Darnold was every bit as good as Baker out there. Unfortunately, through that late game interception that upon further replay, you could actually see bounced off a helmet at the line of scrimmage, wound up being just inaccurate enough to wind up in the hands of the Buccaneers. But man, 28 of 34, 341, not one, not two, not three, 4 touchdowns through the air, averaging a crisp 10 yards per attempt, hitting his dudes downfield. I mean, man, like he threw a heat check where I think they had an offsides or something where Derek Young, Dwayne, came down with a 36-yarder on the sideline. And it was like, oh my God, everything really is going right here. Of course, though, most of his targets were aimed at one man. That man is Jackson Smith-Njigba, now one of only 2 receivers in the NFL with already over 500 receiving yards, joining Puka Nacua. Today, he caught 8 of 9 targets for 132 yards and a touchdown, continuing to very much look like a top 5 real life and fantasy wide receiver. So great stuff there. Also at Cooper Kupp, catching 6 of 9 targets for 59 yards. AJ Barner, Dwayne, went ahead and caught 2 touchdowns. The Michigan man himself. Did we see a meaningful separation with Barner, or did he just kind of run hot here today?
He ran hot. I think this is a fugazi. Now, he's catching some touchdowns this year, but you're just going to have to make sure you run into that game. He gave you 24.3 PPR points. He's averaging 10.4 on the season, if that tells you anything. After a performance like this, he has a 12% target share on the year, 21% today. So these sort of things kind of happen, but Arroyo is still mixing in. He had a 47% route participation. They do play a lot of 12 personnel. Like if I were to make a call out around this offense, you already covered JSN and Kupp and what they did. Torrey Horton, man, continues to play good, like with his opportunities. He's clearly the third guy, but if something happened, knock on wood, never want it to happen. But if Cooper Kupp or something like that, if he missed time, like Torrey Horton's, might be a sneaky boom bust like wide receiver 4. Again, not saying go blow all your fab on him, guys, but if you play in some of these leagues where you know how hard it is to find players, Horton does carry some contingency upside. So kind of, he's a wide receiver 6 stash, in my opinion. 11.4 fantasy points today. Really hard to know when to get him in the lineup because he only played 50% of the routes. But if something were to happen to one of the other guys, I think he might be a guy we would be putting in that wide receiver 3 conversation as a spot start.
Very similar to Isaac Tesla, who also found the end zone today. The run game, Dwayne, we saw Jalen Milroe for a second. He lost a fumble on an option play. Just use him from the sneaks. I don't know what was going on there. I like Jalen Milroe. Just, that was not good. The running back room, Kenneth Walker, his touches were increasing. I wanted to say, I think this morning I was even talking with Chris Allen answering a star sit question. I was like, Kenneth Walker, he could be like a middle-class man's version like Kyron, where you know what, like who cares about the splits? He's still getting his touches. That's wrong, Dwayne, because Zach Charbonnet just keeps coming in around the 5-yard line. He vultured another touchdown today, and we didn't even see him find a way to get Walker the touches despite him converting 10 carries into 86 yards. So I'm not saying Walker is unstartable, man, but just that RB1 season that we were hoping for, man, keeps getting further and further out on the horizon at this point.
I'm ranking him in the running back 3 territory every week. I mean, I don't know what else to say at this point. Like they're continuing to split the carries. 57%. Sharps had 57% of the snaps today to 43% for Walker.
I want you to make them stop, Dwayne. That's what
I want to make them stop. Believe me, and I'm fine with either one of these guys having the role. I just want them to stop doing what they're doing, which is giving Walker 50% of the attempts versus 45% for Charbonnet, but Charbonnet getting all the 2-minute offense and getting this work down inside the 5. It is completely maddening. They're both running back 3s. You don't even really want them in your lineup. I get it, guys. Like if you have Walker, you're probably starting him. I've got him on teams. I'm starting him. Like what else are you going to do? Like it's, unless you went and found, something off the waiver wire, which hopefully you did, because it's not ideal, man.
Kenneth Walker, 4.9 yards per carry this year. That ranks 13th. Zach Charbonnet, 2.8. Joins Chase Brown's the only RBs under 3. I've even checked them up, man. The assumption that Charbonnet is has this, much better stuff rate than Walker hasn't held up over the last 2 years. And honestly, going into this week, they're the only 2 running backs in the NFL facing at least 8 defenders in the box on north of 40% of their carries. So I don't even think you can make an argument that, teams know that they're going to run more when Charbonnet's in the game versus Walker. So very, very frustrating. Walker has made the most out of his opportunities. You can only hope he continues to do so. And carves out more of a role. Certainly still a baller. But yes, amazing game. And this has been your Xfinity game of the week. Again, brought to you by Xfinity. Imagine all your football in one place. Easy. Xfinity. Imagine that. Dwain, the Lions took down the Bengals 37-24. Never really seemed that close. The Lions were up 28-3 going into the fourth quarter. Sure seemed like business, business as usual for most of the Lions passing game. 3 touchdowns through the air from Jared Goff. Didn't find Amon-Ra St. Brown. Who cares? He's still at 100 yards out there. Found Sam Laporta also had 92 yards. That was good to see. And also mentioned Isaac Tesla before. So Jameson Williams thought this could be a boom here. Unfortunately, only got targeted one time, 9 scoreless yards. So that would be the disappointing part, Dwain. But man, on a week where Sam Laporta was able to boom, probably should have known we weren't going to get JMO as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, JMO's just getting squeezed, dude. And like Tesla is part of this, like coming in and catching these touchdowns. It's like one potential opportunity, like this going away from JMO. We've talked about in previous weeks how Jahmyr Gibbs has been getting more passing down work as well. And so Amon-Ra St. Brown on the year has a 29% target share. When you have one dude getting 30% on the season, and now you're spreading it around across all these other guys, and you have a guy like Tesla that's getting these touchdowns. It's terrible, man, for JMO. Like, honestly, like, I don't know what to do with him. Like, I mean, as soon as you bench him, he's going off for 4 catches for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, that's just the way that it's going to work. But he just hasn't taken the step forward we hoped. And he has a 15% target share on the year. He has 7.9 fantasy points per game. He leads the team in air yards still, despite all that, with 41%. But it's just not coming to fruition. So I don't know. I mean, I'm playing with the idea. Is he just a boom bust wide receiver 4, and do we just move forward?
If you didn't know anything else and you just had to look at the statistical profiles, like what's the difference between JMO and Rashid Shaheed?
Yeah, well, like Rashid Shaheed's outscoring him. That's the difference. I mean,
but like on a week-to-week basis, Olave is a poor man's version of Amon-Ra, like just with the state of the offense.
You can't cut JMO. Your only decisions are if you want to bench him or not. And so I'm sure like it's going to get more interesting with the start-sit questions. Most of the start-sit questions that have come to me with JMO, I've typically been like, just go ahead and stick with JMO because like you're going to bench him and you're going to hate it. But at this point, and here's the thing, man, like he took a step forward last year and it was really his first true year to play, but it was an 18% target share. It wasn't like he was nuts, and he's at 15% this year. So I'm just starting to wonder, and I think JMO may be better than this, Ian, but when you play with the Sun God and you have Laporta and these other guys, it's so easy to get squeezed. At least like if we weren't dealing with the Lions offense, right, which is a potent offense where we know like they can feed multiple people. But if like JMO was playing for a lesser offense, like we would probably be telling people if you want to cut him, you can. But it's because he's on the Lions that we're not. And I do think he still carries contingency upside. Like if suddenly you didn't have a Monra for a few games, I know we would feel very differently around JMO. But there's also a chance, man, that he's not a great football player. He's a good deep threat. Like there's a chance that's still what he is in his range of outcomes. So I lean towards him probably still being better than this. He's just squeezed because he plays with other really good players, but this is the role they want him to play. They just want him to run down the field. He's not getting, dude, a lot of the stuff he got last year where they'd put him in motion, they run him on these drag routes and stuff. Like you're not seeing as much of that stuff schemed up. I probably will watch all of JMO's plays this week, just to make sure I'm not missing something, because I've watched some of his film, but he'll probably be a topic for Talk Data to me. I have Matt Harmon coming on this Friday, so maybe we'll make JMO a guy that we talk about.
I know I was really debating all week whether to go with him or David Montgomery for my lovely chopper play, and just ended up going with Monty. I was just feeling the guaranteed volume a little more, and just looking at the Browns just film from last week, man, there was one play where JMO kind of adjusted over his shoulder. You could have called it a drop, but he wasn't running away from dudes like I've seen, man. I'm not saying he got slow or anything like that, but again, just haven't really seen the flashes from JMO, even just with his opportunities that we're used to seeing. Speaking of Dave Montgomery, though, awesome game, Dwain. It was made even more cool just by the fact that I guess he is from, Cincinnati, and he had his sister who was recently paralyzed in an accident, was there. Got to see him. So just very cool vibes going around. He threw a touchdown on a Wildcat play early on to
Jump
Brock
pass,
Wright.
Baby.
And Dwain, do you want to tell everyone the dad joke you came up with?
Oh, yeah. Well, if you Brock Wright sometimes you get a receiving touchdown. They're going to toss you a bone, and it's going to be out of the wildcat on a jump pass from a running back. So yeah, sorry, it's a terrible dad joke, but it didn't even get any like I think 2 people liked it on Twitter. That's how bad it was.
Well, if you guys wouldn't mind liking our video after Dwain made himself all vulnerable right there on my behalf, I would appreciate it. So you mentioned the Brock Wright touchdown, but yeah, Montgomery found his way into the end zone again later. Look, Jahmyr Gibbs was awesome. Actually, finally got going as a receiver after I, pointed out how horrific some of his stats were this week. And now, Dwain, 14 times Gibbs and Montgomery have scored touchdowns in the same game. One more will beat the all-time record held by Emmitt Smith and Moose Johnson. I had no idea that Moose was out there scoring that often as well alongside Emmitt.
Yeah, I honestly would not have guessed that either. And I watched all those games. I knew Moose scored touchdowns, but I didn't realize it would be up there in that range with Monty and Gibbs. I will say, I don't know if it was the fact that, the family was in the stands, but this was definitely Monty's best game as well. Just like overall utilization, Ian, this is how it works. We just talked about last week, like over the first 4 games, Gibbs had really distanced, and you asked, hey, this could just be a small sample thing. It can happen. Well, today he had 54% of the snaps, just a little bit of ahead of Gibbs at 51%. 58% of the rushing attempts versus 39% for Gibbs. Now, Gibbs was out there for more of the routes, had more of the targets. So we'll see what happens. But the bottom line is, whenever you play for the Detroit Lions offense and you are a running back in it, and you're also talented like these 2 guys are, it's usually going to be good things in fantasy.
In Arrowhead next Sunday night, get your popcorn ready for that one. Chiefs run D's been a little bit worse than usual too, so I'm not too sweating that for Gibbs and obviously to a lesser extent Monty. With the Bengals, please, just for the love of God, Zach Taylor, if you're not going to get fired, man, at least take Jake Browning's job away. I mean, this is just horrific at this point. Wound up getting the 251 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jamar Chase had 2 of them for 110 yards. I will admit one throw into the corner of the end zone was pretty nice from Browning. Honestly, pretty ill-advised to even attempt it, but he made it. We'll give him his flowers for that. Other long touchdown, Jamar Chase was very much of the broken coverage variety. Third one went to T. Higgins on a little, just again, fade route by that point. So look, Terrion Arnold, the Lions' remaining starting cornerback, also got knocked out of the game with a shoulder issue. DJ Reed was already out coming in. Something to remember again, maybe for that Chiefs game and beyond against the Lions. But yeah, Dwayne, it's an atrocious offense. It doesn't even look like Chase Brown is handling a featured role anymore. We're going to start Jamar Chase because he's Jamar Chase. T. Higgins is a boomer bust wide receiver 3. Yeah. If you want to rant, go ahead, man. You have every reason to. I wanted to tear my eyeballs out watching this offense.
Look, yeah, Chase Brown, 53% of the snaps today versus 47% for Samaje Perine. Now, Perine has been getting more of the pass down work, getting the 2-minute offense. Essentially, today, I'm clicking on it right now. He had 100% of the 2-minute offense. Oh, my God. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 15 plays in the 2-minute offense. So it was significant. And that's what happens whenever you're getting your ass kicked all over the place because you can't place any ball anywhere near where it should be for a receiver. To your point, Browning did get better in the second half. That's usually the way it works. I just put a tweet out about how bad Jake Browning was playing, and he did seem to correct. I try to do what I can for you guys on these things. It also worked for Jordan Addison today. So I try to keep it going. But yeah, not ideal. I mean, he's getting the rushing attempts here, 61%, but 11.8 PPR points today. I mean, Chase Brown, we had already moved him down to borderline running back 2, like, I don't know, mid-range running back 3. Like, it's just, they got to throw the ball all the time, man. And he doesn't look good. And the offensive line's not good. So I'm not saying he can't eventually maybe get back in our good graces, but I think it's just going to be tough with Jake Browning under center, man. Hat tip to Jamar Chase, somehow like pulling the, as Jason Whitman would say, the rabbit out of your head, and somehow came up with 29 fantasy points today on a 25% target share.
It's been a tough stretch here, man. They've had to face the Vikings and the Broncos. Like, surely it's going to, oh no, they're in Green Bay next week against arrested Micah Parsons and company. Good luck with that. Get out of my lineup. You know what really pissed me off though, Dwayne? Because I didn't think the Bengals were going to compete in this game. I thought the Lions were going to kill them.
Well, you're not saying Chase, get out of your lineup, but you're saying it to Higgins.
No. Yeah. Chase Brown.
Oh, Chase Brown. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. Higgins, yeah, that's fine too. Whatever. This is what really pissed me off about this game. All right. It comes out, Lions go on the field and score. Their second drive, though, Hendrickson got a strip sack. Bengals got a stop. What happens after that? 3 and out. Lions get the ball again. They're probably going to go score. No, punt. First play of the next drive, atrocious Jake Browning interception. Lions go down again. Like literally in the first half, the Bengals were getting stops. We've never seen this in their defense, and their offense was all of a sudden just dropping the ball. I sent out a tweet, Dwayne, like, how do you think Joe Burrow watches these games? I like to think he's just sitting like alone in a just room with no furniture, listening to the game on a radio, like just throwing a tennis ball against the wall. Yeah, I don't know. Let's move on. We had the Commanders take down the Chargers 27-10. Washington winning outright dominantly at that as 3-point dogs. The undercash share at 48.5. Chargers started off with a 10-0 lead. Obviously, that did not last. And accordingly, guys, shout out to, again, the Washington Commanders, led by a returning Jaden Daniels. Good to see one of the best quarterbacks in the league back in action. They only had 7 third downs, man. They just kept on moving the ball, a lot of which was on the ground, averaging 5.8 yards per carry as a team. So 7.1 yards per play really was a very, very efficient effort from Daniels and company. So 231 through the air for Daniels, 1 touchdown, 39 rushing yards. Looked like himself out there, though. I'm sure bigger days will be ahead. That said, Dwayne, he focused almost entirely on Deebo Samuel. I have not seen this in a minute, man. 11 targets for Deebo Samuel. No one else had more than 2 on this offense. So again, Terry McLaurin should be back at some point. Next week, they're facing the Bears on Monday Night Football. We got one of those Monday night doubleheaders going on. Extra day to get ready. Hopefully, Terry's going to be back for that. But as long as he's not, man, Deebo Samuel, upside wide receiver 2. And if you want to call him a wide receiver 1, why the hell not?
Yeah, 17.7 PPR points per game. We were actually a little bit worried about him, but like this is obviously a huge game for him with a 48% target share coming into this game with a heel injury that had him questionable. They did ultimately get a full practice in it, or they took him off the injury report at the end of the week. So 23.6 fantasy points in this game for Deebo. And you've mentioned it in the past, not just all underneath schemed up stuff. He has a 9.5 ADOT. Working down the field, looking really good on dig routes, crossers, out routes, showing really strong hands. Like, I mean, he's got DBs ripping down through his arms, like as he's making hand catches away from his body. So just hat tip to Deebo doing things that he wasn't really asked to do as much whenever he was with the 49ers, but showing that he has a different gear to his game. I will say, like, I don't want to dog him. I'm not dogging him. Like I like Deebo. He doesn't have the same ability after the catch that he once had. He's still very tough after the catch, but you don't see the same electricity. Now, some of that could be due to an injury, right? Maybe the hill wasn't 100% today, but it doesn't really matter. He was open 104 air yards on the day as well. But if you have Deebo, you've been happy to have him in your starting lineup. And the rest, I don't need to say anything else. Obviously, the rest of these guys didn't score anything, and it was just a massive rotation behind Deebo. Like McCaffrey, 45% routes, Lane, 48%, something called a Tay Martin, as you would say, Ian, had 29% routes. So like we need Terry McLaurin back so we can just have some clarity to the wide receiver 2 role.
Get Deebo and fantasy lineups of all shapes and sizes, though, ahead of that real nice smash spot against the Bears I mentioned before. Again, quick shout out to Luke McCaffrey holding a 50-yard bomb down the field. Catch. That was cool seeing him make that play. And then I want to say Chris Moore dropped a 10-yard touchdown in the end zone. Would have been cool, obviously, for Jaden Daniels' stat line. But really, Dwayne, the hero of the day, if you will, was Bill Krosky Merritt. Turned 14 carries into 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also chipped in 39 yards receiving on 2 receptions. Just really a walking big play, man. He now for the season is averaging 6.6 yards per carry, the highest among 46 qualified running backs with at least 25 carries. So he lost a fumble. They said no problem, went right back to him. Did we see a takeover here, Dwayne, in terms of usage?
Not a complete takeover, but it was definitely his season high in fantasy points, snaps, attempts, and routes. 27 fantasy points today, 49% of the snaps. So still had the other half going to Rodriguez and McNichols, and they basically split those. 100% of the work inside the 5 today, though for Bill, which you get in the high leverage stuff. 39% route participation. Obviously, we'd like that number to be a little bit higher, had a 9% target share. But come on, man. Like, this guy's clearly your best running back. Can we just stop jacking around with it and like just let this guy have 65% snap share? Like, what are we doing with Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols? Like, this is a step in the right direction. I won't be able to give him like this massive, oh my God, he took the workload over. I think borderline running back 2. I know most people are going to hear that and they're going to be like, oh my God. Well, guys, like, again, if you got upset about what happened to Woody Marks this week after what happened last week, Bill's in the same boat. He's in the same boat right now because he's not fully taking it over. Again, positive step forward, biggest role of the year. I think we should be excited about it. We said all along that, like, look, we think Bill eventually takes it over, but until we see it, we can't really assume that it's going to happen. So I'm going to upgrade him, but I don't see a way to like just go crazy with it just because we don't know for sure what they're going to do the next week.
And I want to go crazy with it because it is that great matchup against the Bears. And we saw them be, Ashton Genty's breakout game. Obviously, Bill basically just had his breakout game right here, playing so well. But yeah, Dwayne, if you ask me, like if you're like, you have to go live on the street, if you're wrong about how many touches Bill's going to have over under 10.5 next week, it's tough. I got to crunch some numbers, man. I hope it's over, but who knows? So
yeah, on the other side, I will not be putting Bill out as a prop bet next week. I'll just say that.
Prop bets 7 for 7, Dwayne.
We swept today, Ian. 8 of 8.
Wow,
8 of 8. So
and that's an honorable man, guys. 2 hours, 8 minutes in took Dwayne to bring that up. I had the over under on about 30 seconds. So kudos to you, Dwayne, for cashing that over. I'm kidding. I know you're a good, humble Texan man. For the Chargers, tough one, man. 3.8 yard average target there from Herbert. He was under all kinds of pressure, took 4 sacks. Kind of looked like he was playing without both of his starting offensive tackles. Oh, wait, he was. Also lost Mekhi Becton, their guard there, to a hand injury at some point. Mekhi. Apologies. Herbert.
22 grinder.
He had a 41-yard rush, Dwayne, kind of saved the day in fantasy land with 60 rushing yards. It is wild to see him be able to do that when he wants to. Also, I'm going to piece him together, in the morning later today, I should say, where it's like he had 3 or 4 like 20-yard completions. One was a near completion that were just incredible throws to Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnson. Unfortunately, one thing or another nullified them. So Herbert, certainly could see just dunking them down the ranks a little bit because this offensive line behind guys like Drake May, Caleb Williams, maybe Dak Prescott in a good matchup. He faces the Dolphins next week. I would like to think he can still boom there. But that said, Dwayne, it still was another game where we saw plenty of passes. And man, with Omarion Hampton being seen in a walking boot after, that's the thing. I don't love the way the Chargers are looking as a team, but I think Herbert's going to keep throwing the ball around the lot.
Yeah, he's going to keep throwing the ball. The problem is you played the Giants last week and the Commanders, who don't have a good secondary this week, and you averaged 5 yards per 5 yards per attempt against the Giants and 5.7 today. Teams are also onto this, man. They're just playing max coverage against the Chargers, and now you're not potentially going to have Omarion Hampton in the next game, which is really like gives you the threat of a run game. So it's not ideal for Herbert right now. I think I think he's a borderline quarterback 1 right now until we get the offensive line healthy and get a little bit of, honestly, we need some balance back in this damn offense. Like teams are just playing the pass all day long. So I get it. You got 3 really good weapons, but the scheme right now, not ideal. Herbert is dealing the dude is throwing lasers still, but 203 yards against the Giants. 166 yards today. And I didn't play the final drive because obviously there was a drive from the 1 yard line. Dear God, Chargers defense, the 1 yard line all the way down the field, a back-breaking drive by Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. I'm sure Matthew Berry was loving that one. So yeah, it's going to be a downgrade for me for Herbert. I think borderline QB1 until we get the offensive line healthy at least.
We'll see what happens with Hampton again in the walking boot after the game. Fantasy Live show Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern. Rest assured, we will let you guys know every single update. But yeah, not good. Right now, it was pretty evenly split, Dwayne, it was actually exactly evenly split between Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal. Gus Edwards is still chilling out there, man. It wouldn't make sense for a team like the Chargers to lose Najee Harris and potentially Omarion Hampton, at least in the short term, and not add someone else to the equation. So I would not, again, if we somehow know nothing by the time waivers come around on Tuesday, Dwayne, I'm not going out of my way for Haskins or Vidal.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to go out of my way for one of these two, and to your point, I wouldn't be going with a big max like fab bid or anything. I think I would still go for Vidal. I know we went down this road last year and it didn't work out. He's just the guy that has the better 3-down skill set, like theoretically, if it works out for him. Like we know Haskins is not going to catch passes. You mentioned it. It was really close, 60% of the snaps to Vidal and 40% to Haskins. And I pulled that earlier, and that was a game that was finishing up late. Let me just double check that. They were split on the rushing attempts, from the data that I had earlier, which was 50. Well, if it's split, it's 50%. But I had to isolate down. Yeah. So that's right. Yeah, isolate. It was just the last, and again, it's a really small sample, guys. It was just the last 2 drives of the game when Hampton was out. It was also a trailing script, so you would expect to see a little bit more Vidal than Haskins in that situation. But to Ian's point, it was still really close between the two. So not going to be. So let's say Omarion Hampton's out next week, like foot in a walking boot, not good. You had to leave the game. Let's say he is out, and they don't add anyone. Even then, like, you're going to feel really weird about putting either one of these players in your lineup. So it's more of a stash and then see what happens, in the next game. I get it. Some of you are playing.
Kamani would be he'd be our Michael Carter, basically.
Yes. And he would be my recommended bid. Like, I don't know about you, Ian. I know that Haskins kind of haunts you in other ways from his time at Michigan, but Vidal would be my recommendation. But we really can't be sure. It could just be a really gross rotation. And if they had Gus Edwards, that's going to just be bad.
And Haskins is the guy we saw last year. They give him the ball at the 1 yard line. So as much as Vidal, I'm with you. I tend to trust the explosive pass catching archetype. It's going to be messy. It's in an offense that hasn't exactly been running with a bunch of efficiency when Hampton isn't carrying 4 guys on his back and they're willing to, again, throw and just really put the game in Justin Herbert's hands. So next week, Chargers are going to be traveling again, taking on the Dolphins. So winnable enough matchup. Get healthy, please, Omarion Hampton. Good news, though, Dwain. Our long national nightmare is over. Ladd McConkey found the end zone, caught 5 of 7 targets for 39 yards, had a sick 57-yard punt return touchdown where he broke several tackles and then hurdled the punter. Unfortunately, one of the Chargers guys hates our fantasy teams, and he was trying to block the punt, ran into the kicker. It was a good call, so don't be, yelling too much. Quentin Johnson, 4 catches, 40 yards, lost a fumble, also had a 23-yard catch nullified on the hole. Keenan Allen caught 5 of 9 targets, 58 yards, also had a 31-yard catch nullified on the illegal formation penalty. So flags all over the place, man, today. It felt like it was more than usual out there. But honestly, Dwain, it was good to see some of the production swim on over to Ladd McConkey. Again, I know you did a really good job, breaking down some of his routes and stuff with Thoron. Talked out to me. Everyone should go check that out. So Ladd McConkey confirmed still very good at football. The problem is, I'm not all of a sudden rushing to rank him back inside the top 12 after this. I'm just feeling better about not freaking mentioning the guy.
Yeah, it's just all going to even out has kind of been my point around these 3 guys. It was never that, oh my God, McConkey's going to take over from all of them, but just going back and watching the film and running through it with Thor and then sending, Ian a barrage, of screenshots on Thursday Night Football. I think I filled his, DMs with 10 different screenshots of Ladd running wide open, guys. Not on
bro, there's a pretty good game on right now. And Dwayne's like,
I had the game on but I had to make sure I was ready. I wanted to make sure I had my A game ready for having Thor on. When we have somebody like that. So try to get my A game ready every time. But when we're going to grind film, I got to make sure that I, get the reps in. But yeah, 14.9 PPR points, had a 22% target share. To your point, not going to be rushing to move him way up the ranks again, just because this offense, everything we just said about Justin Herbert, it's a downgrade for Herbert. That's a downgrade for all 3 of these dudes for right now until we get the offensive line healthy.
Let's go ahead and get to our DraftKings closing lines. Big games, big moments, and even bigger upside this week. I teamed up with DraftKings Pick 6 to give you a new way to get in on the action. With Pick 6, you ride the upside by making simple predictions. Will a player score more or less than the number listed? Put your picks together, and the more you hit, the bigger your payout. And right now, guys, there's an incredible offer. New DraftKings Pick 6 customers play $5 on your first pick set, and you will get $50 back in bonus picks. That's right. All you need to do is play $5 on your first entry, and you'll get $50 in bonus picks instantly. So don't miss your shot to ride the upside. Download DraftKings Pick 6, get in on all the action, and sign up using my promo code FANTASYLIFE. Thanks to DraftKings Pick 6 for sponsoring this. Let's make this season one to remember. Speaking of one to remember, shout out to Drake May and the Patriots getting the biggest win of his era, 23-20 over Josh Allen, the Bills in Buffalo. Bills were 8-point favorites going to this one. The under cash, certainly was a little bit ugly, just 6-3 Patriots at halftime. But man, saw some big time throws there at the end, Dwayne. I mean, that last drive, Drake May was getting tackled by a dude, and he managed to find Stephon Diggs on the sideline anyway, and then managed to hit that honey hole shot down the sideline to Kayshon Boutte to basically put the Patriots in position to go ahead and kick that game-winning field goal. So a lot of the yardage otherwise was going to Stephon Diggs, and they revenge game special, caught 10 of 12 targets for 146 yards. Second straight week he has gone over 100 yards. And man, Dwayne, again, Drake May's looked good all season, but seeing the Stephon Diggs ascension really has been awesome. He looked great out there, man.
Yeah, and if you guys want basically an auto lock every week, it's taking the over on Drake May's passing. For whatever reason, these markets are very slow to catch up. I mean, they keep putting him at like 220, 225 yards. It hit again tonight. He was over 270 passing yards, I believe, in this game. I'm pulling it up. Yeah, he had 273, 9.1 yards per attempt. Didn't get the touchdown passes tonight, so it wasn't great for you in fantasy. But to your point, with Stephon Diggs really stepping forward here with a 43% target share. Now, I don't know if these route participation numbers are fully complete yet, Ian, but 64% route participation. I know I saw Stephon Diggs on the sideline quite a bit. He would catch a ball, run, then he'd take himself off the field, or they'd pull him off the field for a couple plays, and he's back in whenever they really needed it. He did seem to be out there. He had a 52% targets per route run. If this route participation is correct. So yeah, Stephon Diggs, last week we saw the step forward. He continued that this week with 24.6 fantasy points and just really looked good doing it. I mean, talking about coming off of an ACL injury midseason last year, being at the age that Stephon Diggs is, like, I can't believe how good he looks, to be honest. I mean, we talked about he was looking good last week, but just took another step forward this week and looked like an absolute baller. So I think Stephon Diggs, man, like we'll see what happens.
By the way, Dwain,
yeah,
I'm seeing 26 routes and Drake threw the ball 34-ish times. So it's over 50 for sure.
Yeah, so 64%, route is what I have. So, you're saying the targets per route run, over 50%. Yeah, so
I think the regular routes are like north of 70%. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, I show 23 routes right now in True Media, but maybe I didn't refresh it enough.
So PFF's got 26 for what it's worth.
Okay. Yeah. So that's still not going to be, that's going to be like 70% then, right? Like 70. Anyway, it wasn't like a 90% route participation is the point, but he was absolutely getting the target. So we'll run the utilization report in the morning, guys. We usually have the data live by 9-8 Eastern and we'll take a look at it. It doesn't matter. Like, he's playing really well. I will say this, like, if his route participation is like at 80 or over 80% again, plus these targets, like, he's in the wide receiver 2 conversation. If he's still like in this lesser role, then it makes him probably more of a borderline wide receiver 2, but still, like, the upside for Diggs is just like, he looks so good and they need him, man. They don't have anything else. They have nothing else in the passing game. Absolutely zilch. Hunter Henry's been fine this year, but we know he's not like this massive targeter. Behind those two, there's nothing, man.
And just Diggs, what he's doing after the catch, that's what surprised me. Because last few years, he's been more of a possession sort of receiver. And just tonight, man, he was, I thought Collinsworth did a good job pointing out where, like, Diggs would be making the catch and kind of already making that first move downfield, making dudes miss. And again, really looking like prime Diggs. I know Diggs even said after the game, he's like, this was emotional for me. This was personal for me. So certainly was giving, his 110% against the Bills and everything. But man, again, got to go all the way back to 2016, guys, to find the last time that Diggs was anything other than a top 25 wide receiver in fantasy football. Certainly giving that another run for its money. So Hunter Henry, only 46 scoreless yards. I will say, coming in, guys, the Bills, just the way they play defense, they really do like disincentivize offense for even testing the tight ends. So wouldn't ding him too much. Otherwise, Dwain, last big thing for the Patriots, because we love Drake May and he's going to continue to be a high-end QB1 for us. This backfield, it sounds like Antonio Gibson might have suffered a bad knee injury. He was ruled out very quickly after getting hit on kick return. Ramondre Stevenson lost another fumble. That is 10 over the past 2 seasons for those counting at home, the most in the NFL. You know it's bad when you're even ahead of Kyron Williams. He didn't get completely doghouse, but it was more Travion Henderson. We all hope Antonio Gibson is going to get better. I freaking love that dude. And honestly, man, I've just been hoping that he could honestly find a way out of New England and get on a team that needs a running back, because even though he's doing okay here, still obviously going to be part of a 3 rotation. But Ramondre, if it is just him versus Henderson, Dwain, we already kind of have him ranked as like the lowest running backs anyway, that are kind of, not complete backups. So I'm not saying it's going to be huge jumps up the ranks, but you could feel a little better about stomaching starting Henderson and Ramondre.
Yeah, I mean, they move into the same kind of range as like the Seattle backs.
Yeah.
But still, like, we've talked about it. Now, we didn't want Antonio Gibson to get hurt, but we have talked about it multiple times, that third back, when you have that, like what we talked about with RJ Harvey earlier with Tyler Bidet, like if you're just in the 2 backs, at least you have a chance. My real problem right now with Trevion, Ian, is like, we're not seeing anything from him as far as like any sort of explosive playmaking. Now, the Bills were they were playing the run, tough tonight. The sicko call of Ramondre Stevenson, I tried to pull the reverse jinx, and it just worked. He scored 14.7 fantasy points despite having 2 yards rushing. He scored 2 rushing touchdowns tonight, and he had a catch. So, but yeah, a 50-50 workload. I mean, at least like you guys that are playing in 12-team leagues that start 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and 2 flex, like these guys are going to be in that range with the Seattle backs. You're not going to be crazy about it, but like they're usable.
And that's why I wrote this week about Washington, Kansas City, and New England. It was like, as much as I would love to have these great numbers to say like, oh no, Henderson and, these other, like Bill Crosby-Merritt is killing it. Honestly, it's easier to make that argument for him, but Henderson, you really can't. I mean, it's only 3.8 yards per carry for him this year. Ramondre's at 3.7. Gibson's at 4.2. I'd like to think Henderson's just one more touch away from ripping off the big play, but unfortunately have not seen that yet. Over with Buffalo, again, spirited effort. Unfortunately, they are no longer undefeated. So the Miami Dolphins, those old geezers can go ahead and pop that champagne early in 2025. Good for them. Don't have to sweat that one. But yeah, man, Josh Allen still, he gets in these comeback mode situations, runs for 53 yards, throws for 253 and 2 touchdowns to kind of save the day there. Unfortunately, James Cook is human. His hot streak went away. Certainly not going to be dropping him down the fantasy ranks. I would just say, Dwayne, it was good seeing Dalton Kincaid get going again. Caught all 6 of his targets for 108 yards. He's the one guy that I do think is starting to kind of force his way in the fantasy lineups. Obviously, already had him ranked as a tight end 1 this week. It was good to see Keon score. Shout out Buckeyes. Curtis Samuel got a touchdown. But these wide receivers, man, other than Khalil Shakir just being a fine floor play, in full PPR, I think Dalton Kincaid is the only one that we can really feel any level of good about with his week-to-week upside.
Yeah, this is the only guy, and it's still a massive rotation. Keon Coleman, 69% of the routes. Khalil Shakir, 74%. Even Kincaid at 59%, but he's leading the team this year in targets per route run, and, he looks good right now. So Kincaid came through with 16.8 PPR. He also plays tight end, where it's harder to find fantasy viable options, versus the wide receivers. Yeah. So that's helping out Kincaid as well in the way that we look at him. So yeah, trying to shy away from the rest of this Bills passing attack, which is just, really sad, man, when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen. And I hate to say this, like, I feel like the Bills are a sound team, Ian, and I think they are actually well coached, like from like a fundamentals standpoint and things like that. But man, like, I can't help but think, like, do you really think you're going to just have this rotation of just random guys, and like, do you think it's going to end with a Super Bowl? Like, I don't know, man. Like, I just want to see them use their good players and just let them play the game. So, and maybe Keon's not a good player. Like, he hasn't shown it, like over the course of, like, if we look at his full 2 years and his targets, but he had a 26% targets per route run, had a nice, catch on a kind of a jump ball tonight. I don't know. I wish they would use these guys more, but they're not. I will say real quick on James Cook, even though he didn't come through, and I was kind of at the end, like, oh my God, like, look at this. Like, because in the second half, they were talking about, well, they can't play James Cook all the time. No, he just had his same role, 71% of the snaps, 68% of the rushing attempts. So nothing changed with James Cook's role tonight. Just the New England Patriots, after glowing praise from Mike Vrabel, which was also a shot at Trevion Henderson, I thought, because he essentially said, hey, if we had a back as good as James Cook, we would feed him too, is essentially what he said in his press conference. He came out to stop James Cook in this game. Like, the Patriots were very focused on stopping James Cook, and hey, it worked out. They won the game.
Again, shout out to the now 2-2, or be 3-2 Patriots.
3-2, 4-1 Bills.
Them apples. Bills next Monday night in Atlanta. I don't exactly think that's going to be the team to coax them into, this fantasy-friendly shootout. So Josh Allen, James Cook, slightly lesser extent Dalton Kincaid. Otherwise, we are mostly passing. So with that, Dwayne, we are going to go ahead and pass out as we hit 2 a.m. Eastern here. We appreciate you guys tuning in with us. If you wouldn't mind, hit that like button. If you want to subscribe, maybe even leave a rating if you're feeling freaking crazy out here. We would appreciate it, but it's also a free country. So if not, no worries. So with that, guys, let's move on to week 6. Dwayne's got the utilization report going Monday afternoon. I'll have my rankings up there. More and more goodness after that. So appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, for Dwayne, for producer Mick, I'm Ian. Thanks again. Until next time, take care, everybody.